Good morning and welcome to the New York City Council preliminary budget hearing on veterans. At this time, can everybody please silence your cell phones? If you wish to testify, please go up to the Sergeant-at-Arms desk to fill out a testimony slip. At this time and going forward, no one is to approach the dais. I repeat, no one is to approach the dais. Thank you for your cooperation. Chair, we are ready to begin.
Thank you, Sergeant. Good morning and welcome to the preliminary budget hearing for the Committee on Veterans. I'm Robert Holden, Chair of the committee. Today's committee hearing is on the fiscal 2025 preliminary budget and the 2024 preliminary Mayor's Management Report, or PMMR, for the city's Department of Veterans Services, or DVS. I want to welcome James Hendon, the Commissioner of the Department of Veterans Services, and his staff to testify before this committee. Thank you for coming, Commissioner, and we appreciate your presence and all the hard work you put in to the DVS. I would like to acknowledge my fellow council members who have joined us, Christy Marmorato and Joanne Areola. Right? Okay. Fiscal 2025 preliminary budget for DVS totals $5.2 million, including $3.5 million in personal services funding to support 37 full-time positions and $1.7 million for other than personal services. As a preliminary plan, DVS fiscal 2025 budget is $456,175, or 8% less than the current budget of fiscal 2024. Preliminary plan did not include any significant changes to DVS's budget, notably at just over $5 million. The fiscal 2025 budget for DVS really consists of less than 1/100th of the city's total fiscal 2025 budget, making it one of the smallest, if not the smallest, of all city agencies. I strongly feel that we owe it to our city's valued veteran community to do a better job in supporting their specific needs, which means DVS needs adequate funding. There are areas where the city's veterans lag behind the national average, and the city needs to step up to address this. I was very disappointed to see that DVS was included in the mayor's PEG program, and that funding was reduced in the November plan by $239,000 in fiscal 2024, $236,000 in fiscal 25, and $238,000 in fiscal 26. Thankfully, DVS was exempt from additional cuts in the preliminary plan. However, I would like to see the previous PEGs restored in the executive plan, as there are many areas of need this funding could help address. Today, I look forward to discussing DVS's budget and operations, budget actions that were included in the November plan, staffing at the agency, the city's support services for veterans, and reviewing DVS's metrics reported in the fiscal 2024 preliminary Mayor's Management Report. I am particularly interested in hearing how DVS is coming up with innovative ways to address the mental health, housing, insecurity, employment, and social service needs of our city's veterans. I want to thank both my staff and the committee staff for their help in preparing for this hearing. Ross Goldstein, financial analyst, Julia Haramis, unit head, Regina Paul, policy analyst, and of course my chief of staff, Daniel Crisina. Now I'd like to turn it over to Regina Paul to administer the oath and swear in our representatives. Thank you.
Commissioner James Hendon, Jason Loughran, Lamar Wheeler for the Department of Veterans Services. Please raise your right hand. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this committee, and to respond honestly to council members' questions? Thank you. As a reminder to all of our witnesses, please state your name prior to your testimony for the record. Commissioner, you may begin.
Thank you. Before I begin, this is the first hearing we've held since the loss of a member of our team, former city council member and former deputy commissioner for DVS, Paul Vallone. I'd just like to take a moment of silence to recognize him. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner, for saying that. But by the way, he bridged there was no gap between the City Council and your office. We're very close-knit community in that area for our veterans. But Paul bridged that gap, if there was ever one. He was part of us. I served with him for 4 years in the previous council. He was a friend. The greatest thing that I remember, he could, on a bad day, he would brighten it. Somehow with that smile, he just managed to always be smiling, even if he didn't feel well. So he's an inspiration, and certainly we'll miss him terribly in both areas, the City Council, obviously, and DVS. Thank you. You can go ahead. Sorry.
Thank you so much. Good morning, Chair Holden, committee members, veteran and armed forces members in attendance, their loved ones, and advocates. My name is James Hendon. I serve as Commissioner of the New York City Department of Veteran Services. I'm joined today by my colleagues Jason Loughran, Senior Advisor for Intergovernmental Affairs, and Lamar Wheeler, Director of our Housing Support Services team. Thank you for providing us with the opportunity to discuss DVS's preliminary budget and what we've done, are doing, and will do in support of New York City's veteran community. Following my testimony, we welcome any questions that committee members may have. First, to talk about the past. The New York City Department of Veteran Services has undergone a significant evolution since it was first established as an agency on April 8, 2016. In the ensuing years, we have transitioned from being a referral entity to one whose emphasis is on providing direct services. This transformation is marked by a series of internal shifts aimed at better serving New York City's 200,000 plus U.S. military service members past and present and their loved ones. We chose to focus on services because we recognize that there are certain functions specific to helping veteran and military families that DVS is uniquely positioned to offer through our capacity as an organ of city government. Examples include, but are not limited to, combating veteran housing insecurity, helping veterans file VA claims, and ensuring that when a veteran who served honorably passes away, they receive the appropriate honors and burial benefits regardless of personal wealth. It was key to us to offer immediate and tangible assistance in areas critical to the well-being of our constituents. DVS's service offerings evolved significantly over time. Initially, efforts such as the Core 4 Whole Health model highlighted the agency's broad approach to providing veteran support, promoting veteran well-being directly and indirectly through lenses of culture, connection, community, and clinical care. Separate from our staff who fought veteran housing insecurity, which operated in its own silo, a majority of our community coordinators effectively served as referral specialists. A coordinator's main strength when engaging a veteran was identifying their needs, then referring them to other entities that could be of assistance, known today as care coordination. Over time, DVS refined its approach to explicitly embrace areas that the agency is mandated to address per Chapter 75 of the City of New York's charter. Its 6 charter-mandated areas are healthcare, housing, benefits, culture, education, and employment. This refocusing allowed DVS to align its resources and efforts more closely with the needs of the veteran community, ensuring that vital services were provided in the most in-demand areas. For instance, through this new approach, community coordinators evolved from simply referring veterans to partners to also being accredited by the New York State Department of Veteran Services to help veterans file VA claims. Moreover, the Housing Support Services team transitioned from operating in a silo to working more synergistically with other arteries of DVS. When a veteran had housing needs, but simultaneously had employment, health care, benefits, education needs, etc., there was more cross-pollination of support from others in the agency working in tandem with the housing coordinator, who was the veteran's first point of contact. We still work with external partners, to be clear. There are more than 100 active service providers on our digital referral and services platform, VetConnect NYC. You can visit online at nyc.gov/VetConnect. Nevertheless, the quality and breadth of support to clients due to our collaborative service-first model has increased on our watch. That being said, unforeseen challenges like the COVID-19 pandemic posed unprecedented barriers to our evolution. COVID-era budget cuts, a hiring freeze, macroeconomic fissures, stress to capacity external systems, internal health struggles akin to those faced by all at the time, and rising food insecurity are just some of the challenges that we faced. During the height of the pandemic, approximately 25 DVS employees comprised the on-hand staff. For perspective, our authorized strength just prior to the pandemic in March of 2020 was 49 people. The current authorized strength of the agency is 38. When DVS began navigating COVID, we were on an organic growth trajectory as a new agency that had not yet turned 4 years old. Still, DVS persevered, adapting its operations to continue serving veterans effectively. Despite these obstacles presented by the pandemic, DVS maintained its commitment to the veteran community, demonstrating resilience and flexibility in its service delivery models. Moreover, COVID-19 and economic hardships subsequently faced by the city taught us as a young agency what was essential, what was not, and how to forge a blueprint that in a resource-constrained environment still generates maximum impact. An operational milestone was the dramatic expansion of the agency's ability to identify veterans. From having contact information for approximately 5,000 veterans in 2019, DVS expanded its capabilities to include information for now more than 100,000 veterans today. Data sharing agreements with other government entities, national advocacy to the U.S. Department of Defense, increased participation at veteran and veteran-adjacent activities, and media amplification through various platforms, print, broadcast, internet, and otherwise, informed this rise. The expansion of who is in the community we could identify was crucial in enabling the agency to engage with a broader swath of the veteran populace, thereby extending our services to a wider group. In order to actuate these strategic shifts, DVS made thoughtful pivots in the following areas: operations, administration, contracting, personnel, and community engagement. These changes were integral to enhancing the agency's capacity to deliver services effectively, ensuring that all frameworks and resources were aligned with the department's mission and broader objectives. Central to DVS's approach is our belief that human-to-human service delivery is at the heart of this agency. Technology, while important, is an enhancer, not the core of how services are delivered. Physical engagement fuels DVS's efforts. This is amplified by digital initiatives which augment the agency's reach and efficiency. Our approach underscores the importance of personal interaction in meeting the needs of veterans. This reflects the agency's commitment to providing compassionate and responsive care. As a new agency facing acute and growing needs within the veteran community, DVS navigated a challenging landscape characterized by scarce resources. This situation required creativity and a sharp focus on prioritizing essential services. The experience honed DVS's understanding of what is truly important in serving the veteran community, leading to the development of a robust and effective delivery model that addresses the most pressing needs of veterans and their loved ones. Now to speak to the current state of affairs, the present. Excluding the headquarters component, organizationally, DVS now consists of three major verticals. They are administration, community services, and strategic engagement. The administration vertical of DVS includes functions such as information technology, human resources, payroll and timekeeping, compliance, fiscal operations, and equal opportunity. DVS admin has perennially facilitated the internal functions needed to sustain us as an agency. Within DVS, our community services vertical plays a crucial role in focusing on 3 of our 6 charter-mandated areas: housing, benefits, and healthcare. In support of those charter-mandated areas, community services executes 4 tasks. Those tasks are housing support services, VA claims, burial services, and care coordination. Thirdly, our strategic engagement arm focuses on the charter-mandated areas of education, employment, and culture. Strategic engagement oversees education, employment, and culture because, relative to other aspects of the charter, we rely deeply on partners when it comes to working with schools for education, employers for employment, and nonprofit organizations for culture, respectively. DVS's strategic engagement vertical is divided into 4 subunits: outreach, events, partnerships, and communications. While there's sometimes overlap between the endeavors of the 3 verticals, community services, administration, and strategic engagement, the groups work together effortlessly to execute our agency's assignment of moving the bell curve that is New York City's veteran community to the right. Across these verticals, DVS has demonstrated a strong commitment to serving New York City's veteran community through comprehensive services, strategic partnerships, and targeted outreach and engagement. The agency's efforts from the beginning of the Adams administration to the present have contributed significantly to improving the lives of veterans and their families, highlighting DVS's role as an essential resource for veterans in the city of New York. Some, not all, accomplishments include: in healthcare, the launch of Get Covered NYC Vet, an effort conducted in partnership with the Mayor's Public Engagement Unit aimed at helping veteran and military families access VA healthcare and or the New York State of Health where applicable. Data sharing agreements with the Veterans Health Administration. With 100,000 active records, 100,000 plus, DVS has contact information for more veterans living in the city of New York than the VA, who maintains approximately 38,000 plus active records. We now share our data with them to facilitate VA outreach to eligible VA healthcare clients who are currently untethered. Crisis Intercept Mapping and the Veterans Mental Health Coalition. Crisis Intercept Mapping and the Veterans Mental Health Coalition are communities of practice for responders to mental health incidents involving New York City veterans. Crisis intercept mapping is hyperlocal with an emphasis on first responders. The Veterans Mental Health Coalition is citywide with an emphasis on enduring stakeholders. For housing, the Empire State Supportive Housing Initiative, DVS, also known as ESHI. DVS has leveraged ESHI to facilitate the forthcoming erection of 250 plus units of new state-subsidized veteran supportive housing in the city of New York. Project-based Veterans Affairs Supportive Housing, known as VASH, working with our partners at the VA, the New York City Housing Authority, and the New York City Department of Housing Preservation and Development, DVS has laid the foundation to erect here in New York City the first project-based VASH collaborative case management units. Collaborative case management, formerly known as VASH Continuum, is a form of VASH specific to veterans who are not eligible for VA health care. DVS, we as an agency, provide case management to these veterans. Also together, we've laid the foundation to erect the first traditional project-based VASH units built in New York City since 2016. Mitchell-Lama transparency. DVS advocated for the passage of state legislation signed into law last year, which publicly conveys how many New Yorkers utilizing Mitchell-Lama's veterans preference are on the wait list for each Mitchell-Lama development. Through this law, veterans have a clear picture of the paths available to them when seeking affordable housing through Mitchell-Lama. For benefits, pop-up veteran resource centers. On an advertised, one-day-only basis, DVS positions our veteran benefits advisors in community locales such as district offices for city council members, New York City Health and Hospitals medical facilities, borough-level district attorney's offices, and NYPD Police Academy veteran resource fairs, etc. Indigent burials. DVS utilizes the state's program for reimbursing indigent veteran burials to an extent broader than that of any other municipality in New York. We've cultivated pathways for the state's reimbursement of an indigent veteran's burial to flow through either a veteran service organization or the City of New York, diversifying available funding streams should one run out. We've also set aside internal funds specifically in support of the indigent veteran burial program. Claim support in partnership with Vet Connect service providers. DVS is amplifying the number of VA claims specialists in New York City by helping Vet Connect service providers who desire to help veterans file VA claims obtain accreditation from the state of New York to process said claims if they're not currently accredited. We provide quality assurance and quality control to service providers' designated claims rep, and then, if needed, refer claims to the service provider through Vet Connect NYC. For education, the Military Family Advocate Program. DVS partners with NYC Public Schools to pilot an effort currently in year one, whereby the desired end state is that all DOE schools will have a designated staff or faculty member who is the point of contact for military and veteran family needs. The current pilot here for 2023-2024 school year involves 77 schools on Staten Island. Student Veteran for Life. DVS has designed and expanded a Student Veterans for Life, a Student Veterans of America inspired initiative, currently embraced by Fordham University, Manhattan College, and John Jay College of Criminal Justice, whereby high school students who enlist in the U.S. Armed Forces in the greater New York City region are assured pre-admission to each school's undergraduate programs upon completing their initial military commitment. JROTC expansion. DVS is working with New York City Public Schools to increase the number of JROTC programs in New York City for the first time in a material way in decades. The number of JROTC programs in DOE has increased from 19 to 25 programs since 2022 as a result of this partnership. More programs are on track to be added. Employment. DoD SkillBridge. DVS has increased the number of New York City-based work experience training opportunities available to transitioning service members who take advantage of DoD SkillBridge. SkillBridge is a federally subsidized work experience training program that is available to transitioning service members during their last 180 days of military service. Boss Up Veterans Small Business Program. In 2023, DVS executed in partnership with the NYC Department of Small Business Services and the Ron and Carrie Moelis Foundation, the City of New York's first ever small business competition exclusively for veteran entrepreneurs. Civil Service Veteran Expansions. Working in partnership with the New York City Department of Citywide Administrative Services, DCAS. DVS helped to expand New York City's veteran and disabled veteran credit to include veterans who served during both peacetime and times of conflict. Also, DVS and DCAS partnered to extend a one-time civil service exam fee waiver to veteran and military spouses. For culture, community engagement sessions. DVS established a recurring public forum for veteran community leaders, particularly VSOs, to engage DVS leadership directly and vice versa on issues impacting New York City's veteran and military families. Honoring our Vietnam War veterans. DVS consistently recognizes New York City's next greatest generation of veterans after our World War II and Korean War veterans through more robust support of Vietnam Veterans Day and Agent Orange Remembrance Day activities. Also, we publicly recognize the 36 New York City veterans who are still missing in action in Vietnam. Further, working with the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund and other local Vietnam Veterans of America chapters, we temporarily erected a replica of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Flushing Meadows Park last autumn, the Wall That Heals. Citywide liaisons with legacy veteran service organizations, or VSOs. DVS collaborated with the state-level leadership of the American Legion and Veterans of Foreign Wars to designate one American Legion liaison and one VFW liaison to the New York City Department of Veteran Services. This action expedites synergy and communication between DVS and a large number of our local legacy VSOs. A meta-development during this administration, which informs all of our charter-mandated areas. After years of advocacy individually and in partnership with the National Association of State Directors of Veterans Affairs, DVS was a key leader in this effort. Starting in October of 2022, our agency began receiving contact information directly from the Defense Department for transitioning service members who indicated on their DD-214s that they intend to settle down in New York City. This is a watershed moment when it comes to identifying and maintaining positive knowledge about our incoming veterans and their families. Now to the days ahead, the future. As we look to the future, DVS is dedicated to a multifaceted approach to better serving our constituents. Our vision encompasses 3 key priorities, each aimed at enhancing our support for veterans and their loved ones. Priority 1, identifying untethered veterans. Our first priority is to intensify our efforts to identify untethered veterans. These are veterans who, for various reasons, may not be fully connected to the services and benefits that they've rightfully earned. For greater context, according to the VA's FY22 Gross Domestic Expenditure Report, while 33.1% of eligible veterans nationwide take advantage of VA benefits, that proportion falls to 29.6% in New York State and 24.2% in New York City. To better identify our brothers and sisters who are untethered, we are taking a multi-pronged approach, which includes but is not limited to introduction of legislative measures. We support and advocate for measures like Intro 1237, recently passed by the Council. Intro 1237 will organically improve data sharing mechanisms between city agencies and DVS. This legislation significantly enhances our ability to identify veterans who are not yet connected to our services and asks on almost all City of New York client-facing forms, to paraphrase, have you ever served in the U.S. Armed Forces? If so, then would you like to be connected to DVS? Sharing information with elected officials, informing New York City's elected officials at the city, state, and federal levels of who the veterans are and their districts that we are aware of, increases the number of stakeholders who will engage our constituents in a targeted, hyper-local way. Often, the decision by a veteran or military family to identify themselves and come to the light is dictated by how many times they have been engaged. Currently, data sharing agreements that DVS has executed with the New York City Council, New York State Assembly, New York State Senate, and forthcoming New York City's congressional delegation will enable us together to expedite this process. Utilizing military separation paperwork, or DD-214s. We have New York City's transitioning service members' DD-214s, and we know who many of them are as of 2022. Working with partners, we hope to identify the optimal way or ways to engage this cohort of new veterans such that we establish a rapport and long-term trust. It is our goal for this bond to be mutually beneficial to transitioning service members and the broader veteran community. Amplifying DVS messaging. To reach more veterans, we aim to enhance our communication strategies. This includes working closely with partners to smartly intensify our messaging through various platforms, ensuring that every New York City veteran, including those whom we do not currently know, is aware of how to access our agency and our partners. Priority 2, integrating untethered veterans. After identifying untethered veterans, our first priority, our second priority is to integrate those veterans and their families into the broader ecosystem of DVS and DVS-affiliated services. Those strategies include providing care coordination services to transitioning service members before their arrival. Currently, DVS receives DD-214 data from the Department of Defense during the week when a service member's DD-214 was processed at the Pentagon. In coming months, we will also begin receiving Transition Assistance Program data. We will receive contact information for service members who are still on active duty status, but who will have informed their leaders through a form known as a DD-2648 that they intend to leave the military within the next 12 months and transition to New York City. Engaging service members before their departure from active duty allows us to help ensure a smooth transition to civilian life. Connecting veterans to local veteran service organizations. We aim to do our part to help increase the utilization of existing VSOs through various methods, some of which include asking veterans for their consent to be connected to local VSOs upon their arrival in New York City, promoting VSO activities through the New York City Veteran Community Calendar run by our friends at the Bob Woodruff Foundation, ourveterans.nyc, and increasing our coordination with VSO leaders throughout DVS's community engagement meetings and our citywide VFW and American Legion liaisons. Fortifying our Vet Connect service provider network. It is important to prepare our Vet Connect service providers to function in a way that ensures the cumulative delivery of services to DVS clients is always able to meet demand. In other words, if, for instance, DVS has a surge of clients who engage our agency about essential services like those involving housing insecurity, indigent veteran burials, and/or VA claims, we will refer said veterans to predetermined, pre-groomed partner entities through Vet Connect NYC. We're in the initial stages of grooming partners specific to housing insecurity and VA claim support at this time. Priority 3, increased emphasis on housing and claims. Finally, our third priority is to increase our emphasis on housing and claims assistance for veterans. Expanding housing support. Recognizing the importance of stable housing for veterans, we're committed to working with stakeholders, both internal and external, to leverage existing resources so as to increase our footprint in aiding veteran and military families in the transition from insecure to secure housing. Enhancing claim support. Empowering veterans with the support they need to navigate VA claims process is vital. We aim to improve our capacity to assist veterans in filing claims, ensuring that they receive the benefits they are entitled to in a timely manner. By focusing on these priorities, the Department of Veteran Services is committed to not just meeting the immediate needs of our veterans, but ensuring they are fully integrated into a supportive and understanding community. Our goal is to ensure that every veteran and military family member in New York City has access to the services, support, and community they deserve. Concluding, beyond our thoughts on the agency's past, present, and future, there are 4 common themes that I would like to share which undergird many of our decisions and actions. They are DVS's organization. The way that DVS is organized leans first on our strategy for engaging and serving the veteran community. Second, on the need for there to be redundancy in certain administrative roles in order for us to function as an agency. And third, on the desire to add more client-serving staff to our framework as demand from veteran and military families for our offerings increases. A federal unfunded mandate. A large portion of our work involves filling a federal unfunded mandate generated by the VA in its decision to limit healthcare eligibility drastically compared to the more permissive guidelines that existed for veterans who enlisted in the military before September 7th, 1980. Second and third order effects from this decision are felt today at the local level. Also, this decision is largely subsidized, directly, indirectly, and otherwise, by our nonprofit partners and DVS. Complex challenges. Many of the challenges the New York City veteran community faces, structural, policy, demographic, et cetera, are more complicated than they appear on the surface. They often require analysis that views the problem in depth over a period of years, not just a 1 or 2 year snapshot, along with a solution that may take years to reach fruition, i.e., building new supportive housing, federal legislative fixes, attracting more transitioning service members to New York City, et cetera. Veteran identification. This agency will remain committed to identifying untethered veteran and military families, providing them with earned benefits and services as we do with all DVS clients, and connecting them to the broader New York City veteran ecosystem. We pray that this testimony has given you a firm understanding of where our agency came from, where we currently are, and where we intend to be. We also hope that you understand how we think and some of the broader themes that we wrestle with. We welcome continued collaboration as we work together to connect, mobilize, and empower New York City's veteran and military families. I urge you all to please reach out to me or our Senior Advisor for Intergovernmental Affairs, Jason Loughran, with any follow-up questions or thoughts. Please view us as a tool to assist as you navigate legislative ideas and a prospective enabler of your historic and future success. Your success as a committee is beneficial for all veterans. Thank you.
And thank you, Commissioner, for that. And let's talk about the size of your agency for a second. DVS fiscal 2025 preliminary budget includes 37 full-time positions. As of January 2024, 36 of those positions were actually filled, leaving 1 vacant. It was announced on February 21st, 2024, that the mayor is canceling the PEG for the executive plan, and the administration is moving from a near full hiring freeze to a 2-for-1 model. and easing other than personal spending, OTPS, freeze restrictions. Does the agency have adequate headcount to effectively run all the programs and initiatives? And if not, how many additional positions does DVS require? Now, the truth, I need the truth here, because you're under oath. What do we really need? Because 36 is not going to do it, ever. Is never going to do it. And we're just kidding ourselves. So what do you really need in the way of personnel?
I want to update one piece, and thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. I want to update one piece of that, the numbers. As of now, the head count is 38. There are 2 of the 38 who are on protected leave. This is as of now, so that's the correct number as of January, but as of now, it's 38 as a head count. 2 are on protective leave, and there's 1 vacancy in the agency. For us, the priorities as far as the key things when you look at us, the first, and it was kind of what I mentioned in the testimony, first goal for us is have the framework right. Like, how are we going to array ourselves to go attack these problems, these issues with our veterans? That's the first thing. The next thing is we have to have certain redundancy administratively just to survive as an agency. In other words, there was a time when we had only 1 person on IT. That's not sustainable. You need at least another person. There was a time we only had 1 person doing physical operations. That's not sustainable. There was a time where we only had 1 person doing HR. You need at least some redundancy or else everything come crashing down. So number 2, because it's how we breathe, is making sure the administrative house is in a good place. Number 3 is fleshing out the team and adding client-facing staff so that once you've got the framework there, you can add the flesh so you can continue to make touches with people. Priorities for us, top of the ticket is housing, to get to a place where we have an ample number of housing coordinators so that we can continue to push our numbers down, which we can talk about a little bit later. And the other piece is claims, to have enough claims representation to be able to adequately provide support to our veterans who need it, and to, at a minimum, be able to cover down on each of the 5 boroughs as far as having someone who's dedicated for claims for at least those 5 boroughs, and having at least enough folks on the housing side to continue to push to a place where functional zero for veteran homelessness is 400. We'd like to try to get to that number. And I'm sorry, I got to defer to Lamar as far as about how many people are typically housed per year by a housing coordinator. Lamar, if you can add to that.
Yes, sir. Typically 100, 120 is typically how many we house annually.
But as far as one coordinator, what one coordinator typically do?
40.
And so when you look at even the point-in-time count numbers, and the most recent point-in-time count is 567 as of January 2023 is a snapshot. It's like water coming in and water coming out as far as those who are coming in who are housing insecure, and then those who are working the triage. And so we're trying to, with this constant water in, water out, get to a place where there's less water, where we can get to stay underneath 400. So top of the ticket is to have enough coordinators to be able to keep us at lower than 400 and have enough claims representation to be able to cover down at least at a rate of 1 claims rep per borough at least.
So what are we talking about in total staff that you could function the way you should function? 80? 90?
We'll always be grateful for more resources.
Okay, I know, but I need.
But it's.
Let's talk about our veterans, though.
Yeah.
Well, how many people in your agency could help more? I mean, obviously, if you have 30, 37, 38, whatever positions, that's not enough to get to everyone, not even nearly enough. So I would say, and just for the sake of argument, if we doubled DVS in size and personnel, because I want something to shoot for here. I want to bring it to the mayor that, Mr. Mayor, we can help so many more veterans if we had a much larger DVS, because our veterans are not getting the services they've actually earned. So if we could reach out to more veterans and get them the funding or the health care that they deserve, that would help New York City tremendously. And so it's not a big investment. That's what I'm saying to the mayor. I'd like you to say, what's a good target? And I know I don't want to get anybody in trouble, but if you had to come up with a number in the future, what would you like to see your size of your agency? Say double.
I want to just, before answering that, I have to say for us, it's, to be clear, we're in a place where it's having more client-serving staff. That's the piece of it. In other words, we have the framework. We know the plan. It's having more client-serving staff. And, I could say, looking at prior to the pandemic, as I mentioned in testimony, we were at 49 was our shrink. We're at 38 now. And so for me, just to even get back to where we were before pandemic would be something that we would
All
be
right.
grateful for.
Okay.
But to be clear, the need on claims, we estimate that there'll be 23,821 veterans in this city who, if they've applied for a VA claim, would receive compensation of some sort. Or that's just service-connected disability, not even other aspects of VA claims. So it's 23,821 veterans who, this is the number to get us from the current proportion, which is 16.5% of veterans has a VA claim in New York City, to the national number, which is 27.8. So to get to what the national numbers are, you're talking about 23,821. And then on the housing piece, that for us, it's getting to a place where with this constant flow of veterans coming in and out, that we can steady it and be at less than 400. So the number of veterans we need to continue to get there on the housing side.
Right.
So just to give some sort of framework for it, but yeah.
Okay. Under the hiring freeze, were any positions at DVS exempt, and why?
Right now, just to speak to the present hiring freeze, there are 3 exceptions to that, 2 for 1. In other words, an exception is made if it's a revenue-generating position. An exception is made if it is a public safety position. An exception is made if it is a public health position. And so for us, when we talk about claims and we talk about housing, our argument is that those fit within the realm of public health. And so in that line, when I speak saying, hey, we would like to increase our representation, number of folks we have as coordinators for claims, coordinators for housing, that, we believe that that's something that would be exempt from the guidelines because it touches veteran housing and security. You can draw the line to health. VA claims, you can draw the direct line to VA health care as well. So that's kind of where we look at this, Mr. Chair.
So the priority positions at DVS, is that the revenue-generating personnel? Is that the priority?
The priority, we look at those as public health when it comes to claims and housing, and that is the priority, with housing being at the top, then claims. That's how we look at it. For revenue, the thing with revenue is our work, we help veterans obtain federal benefits. So when it comes to revenue, it's 2022 fiscal year, it was $1.9 billion in federal funding that came to the city of New York, courtesy of veterans receiving benefit support, et cetera. And so when you look at the work that we do with, on the housing side, on the claims side, on the burial side, there's federal funding attached to that. So when we say that revenue, it's really the context of the economic footprint of what our veterans bring. When the city looks at revenue, they're thinking of it in terms of internally more of, if a fine is administered by Department of Buildings, that's revenue, or things like that, or fees. And so for us, it's why we don't look at these as revenue positions. We look at these more so on the public health side, Mr. Chair.
All right. I thought you were looking for information. So what are some of the main challenges DVS is facing, specifically in hiring new candidates? What are some of the challenges? Training, finding the right candidates. What are you facing now in the current budget situation?
I think the biggest challenge is, getting the approval to be able to make the hires, because we still have to go through the same traps all agencies do in this landscape to get that green light, to bring that person on, to have that discussion, to make sure that this is counted as public health as an example. So it's that internal piece of it, and working internally to leverage the resources we have to get more done. So I think it's the hurdle isn't the need, as far as we are certain that there are talented individuals out who would like to serve in government, who may already be in government, who we think would be value add to the team, especially in our areas of need of claims and housing. It's just internally going through what we have to go through to be able to get those green lights to hire.
Let's talk about mental health screenings. The number of mental health screenings completed in fiscal 2022 was 845, which declined in fiscal 2023 to 626. In the first 4 months of fiscal year 2024, there were 137 mental health screenings, another decline of 73.3% when compared to the same period of the last fiscal year. So DVS has a target of 730 screenings in fiscal year 2024. Why has the number of mental health screenings been declining, Commissioner?
Mr. Chair, we decided to not make it a mandatory set of questions we asked when a veteran approaches us for assistance. So in the last administration, during the Vets Thrive Days, it was, if you came to DVS, we would administer the GAD-7, the PHQ-9. These are screeners for anxiety, for depression. And this was my call. I personally went through receiving claim support from DVS, and I was asked right away these questions, and I thought to myself, goodness, I don't want to be infantilized. I don't want people to treat me like a victim. I'm just coming to get claim support. And so that really fueled the decision to, instead of making it a mandatory question where anyone who comes to us, we ask them these things, it is something that is optional. We've worked to optimize the language since the PMMR, where our mental health lead, Dr. DeMello, and our press secretary, Chuck Rivera, have worked together to say, okay, what's the way we can ask this where it's more welcoming if someone does want to take that screener. At the same time, we do not see ourselves going back to a situation where someone comes to us about one thing and we're automatically asking them questions, presuming they may have anxiety or depression.
But, to increase the number of screenings, the plan you just mentioned is to ask a number of questions and to go around till you get to that point.
No, I want to clarify that. No, it's asking the question, would you like to
Would you
take
like,
this?
but-
It's asking it in a warmer way, but at the end of the day, I don't know if we'll get back to a place where we have such a high number because it was force-fed on anyone who came to us, and it was a decision for us to not we just didn't want people to feel like right away, I'm coming to you for help with my small business. You're asking me these questions as if I have anxiety or depression. We already talk about how it's 7% of veterans will experience PTSD at some point in their lives. 6% of all Americans will experience PTSD at some point in their lives. We don't want our people to feel as though we're treating them differently. If someone goes to another agency, they're not asked questions like this off the bat.
Yeah, but again, I don't know if that's the right. I mean, I'll defer to you, but I would essentially think, first, and again, it's old thinking possibly, but that people do have post-traumatic stress. People, coming from the service for various reasons that are hidden. So you got to pull them out. So there's got to be a strategy to try to get to that. And you mentioned, one point you're trying to do, but if the end result is less screenings, I don't know if that's helpful.
What's tough though is just to go back to the data. It's 7% of all.
I know
veterans.
that. I
It's
know
6%
all that.
of all, and so I don't. This is me personally, Mr. Chair, and this was my decision completely. I don't want people to feel like we are automatically assuming that they are broken. And so we'll ask questions. We're trying to, make that language more appealing for folks to voluntarily do this. But I just don't want us to, if someone comes to us with questions about educational benefits or questions about something else, that we automatically go right into the anxiety and depression screeners. As a veteran, and as someone who, the trigger was me experiencing it myself as a client of DVS, I felt put off by it. And we were able to break from it because we're beyond the Vets Thrive Days, and so we decided to, Mr. Chair.
But on the flip side of that, some of the veterans are not going to admit that they have problems. We know I had a personal experience with that with my dad. He never would admit anything, but he was totally affected by the war, couldn't function, but he never sought help, and he never would admit it. So this is a problem to pull that out, and that's why I think we should go further into finding what are the causes some of the veterans are going through in life that they can't overcome, or that they can't really function as well as probably they should have if they were diagnosed. And that's why it's a tough. I know the national average, what you mentioned, is numbers, but I'm not sure those numbers are accurate, because just experiences with veterans. My experiences with veterans have been mostly from the Vietnam War and also World War II and Korea. So those were where I was around most of those individuals. And in speaking to veterans today even, I can see that they're affected, even though they tell me, "Oh no, I'm okay. I'm okay." So that's why I'm suspect with the numbers nationally and what you were telling. But that's my experiences. And we all are different human beings. It affects us differently, certainly combat. But it does affect, if you're human, it affects everyone to a various degree. All right, let me go on to the Joseph B. Dwyer.
Mr. Chair, may I mention something just to respond to that too? I feel like one of the deeper goals for us is to form relationships with the veterans. In other words, and not just us, but also our partners in the veteran community, where you may have someone who may not want to open up on certain things, but they come to you for one need at first, and as time goes
then
by,
you-
they
yeah.
feel more comfortable. I feel like that's the holy grail of this, is to get to a place where someone is comfortable enough with us, where a relationship exists, and when they are ready to open themselves up in that way, we're there, but not that we turn them off.
Do they have any questions?
Just acknowledge that Councilmember
Okay.
Palladino is
We've been joined by Councilmember Vicky Palladino. Let's talk about the, and then I'll open some questions to my colleagues. Okay, yep, okay. Councilmember Marmorato, yes.
Hi, good morning. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you for your service. Me and my family and my community appreciate it. We truly do.
Thank you.
Just a couple of questions. I'm sorry, I'm like a little. So in 2024, the PMMR, the fourth month actual for the numbers for the veteran services is 3 times greater than what it was last year. What is the reason for the increase?
Thank you, Councilwoman. Well, I think what you're referring to is our veterans served data for our PMMR this most recently made published. And what we attribute that increase to is much of the partnerships that we've been facilitating with the city council district offices, our increase in social media outreach, and our partnerships through various events that we've held, like the Wall That Heals and the New York Mets Transition Summit. So what we're seeing here is that we're doing a better job of getting the word out about who we are, and we're bringing services out to the community of where they are. We also want to, this kind of ties into Chair Holden's question too, in terms of the mental health screenings, and that when we're getting out to people and meeting them face to face and talking to them, removing the, say, robotic questionnaires of, you know, answer these 10 questions for me, but developing a relationship with them in your offices, at these events, we get to the point where that person who originally came to us for employment actually ends up also getting a mental health referral, an employment referral, and a financial counseling referral. So one thing I want to point out in that data point is that it's increased by so much, because it's not only that we're meeting with more clients, but we're also getting to a higher plethora of their needs. And so instead of that one referral of, hey, I came to DVS and I want employment services, and we gave them employment services, it was that relationship building component that led to 2 other referrals. So that means that the served number is now 3 times that for that individual, rather than the one data point. I'll refer to the Commissioner and Lamar if they have anything to add.
Thank you so much. I just want to add, Councilmember Marmorato, another piece of this is we feel like things like this are leading indicators of where we're going. There's been a lot of work we've been doing for years now to get to a place where we reach these tipping points where we start to see more just touches with our veterans and their families, and we pray that this is something that is a positive sign for us. And so there's different pieces of this which just, you know, it takes time, but we've been chopping away at the tree, and we pray that this is something that's a portent of more access like this to come. So, yeah.
And just one more question. And what is the city and DVS strategy to improve housing opportunities for the city's veterans who need assistance, especially those who are living in shelters currently?
Okay, so thank you so much for that question. When we look at the veteran unsheltered population, just a couple of things. The larger way to look at it is not just year to year, but look at it over the entire time from which this has been recorded, the information that HUD's recorded. There's been a point in time count since 2007. Veterans have been accounted for by state since 2009. From 2011, it was done at a more local level. And so there have been really 3 big shifts in these numbers. 2011, we had 4,677, or just under 5,000 in 2011. Then you saw it decline to roughly 3,600 when you get to 2012, 2013. It hovered around the 3,600 mark. Then you saw another drop in 2014, 2015 to around 1,600. After that, from 2016 to the present, we've been in this steady state where it's been anywhere from 688 to 482 homeless veterans in the city. So it's been this constant drop. We're trying to get to not be in that band, but to be in a lower band of, frankly, 200 to 400, because 400 is functional zero. When we look at our population right now who is unsheltered, a couple of caveats. One thing, and Lamar can attest to this, approximately 1 out of every 4 veterans who are in the shelter system are not originally from New York City. In other words, when we ask them, where were you 12 months prior to entering housing insecurity, it's not New York City. And so, we were talking about things about right to shelter and whatnot and how that affects us long before the migrant crisis. And so that's one piece. Another piece, not reflected in the current federal numbers, but we may see it ahead. We now work with the Department of Homeless Services to run all adults who are in the shelter system through a platform the VA has called Squares, where VA Squares allows you to say, of all these people in shelter, here are the ones who are veterans, and here's the ones who are not. Based on that, we're seeing that for every one who tells a person that they are a veteran, one does not. And so the numbers are just us trying to get a handle on this, and recognizing that the most recent point in time count, that roughly a quarter of that, we estimate, not from New York, and that it's only half of what we think the actual population is. And so with those things in mind, the other broader aspect of this, we're in a place where a lot of the people who are in the system, not all, but many, need supportive housing, where there are substance abuse issues, there are mental health issues, not for all, but for a decent number. Yet the supportive housing stock in the city has little churn. So if you're a veteran and you're going for veteran supportive housing, if you're from one of our service, SSVF, or Supportive Services for Veteran Families Providers, if you go, you'll see they've got less than 5% who are leaving each year. And so there's a need to build more units. And so one aspect of this is why it was important. We said we've been working with the state and with developers who are applying to have more units in the pipeline. It looks like we'll have more than 250 units to be erected, or they're currently in construction, which we'll see come online in the coming years to try to attack this, because you have more of the 567 say, look, let me go into supportive housing. That's one piece of it. Another piece of it is it's all a chain, Councilmember Marado. It's a chain between emergency housing to supportive housing to affordable housing to home ownership. We need to rebrand how we talk about supportive housing, because you have veterans who say, look, I don't want to go in supportive housing, even though it may be something they need. They don't want to go into it because they fear that they're going to go there and that's it. And we have to make it clear, no, look, there's a pathway here. Don't call it supportive housing, call it step one housing. So we're looking to rebrand it so that more veterans say, look, I'm fine with going to step one housing, because I recognize that step two is affordable and step three is ownership. For that, we need to step in the gap on the affordable housing side, and it's important to us to have as much expertise as possible in-house in our agency to help veterans connect the dots with what options are available to them within affordable housing. Everything from the Mitchell-Lama Veterans Preference to opportunities with HFA, the state's affordable housing opportunities, to navigating Housing Connect here at the city and other things. And so it's important for us to get our house in order so that we can fortify this link and also ownership, so that when someone says, look, I can see a pathway, I'm not just going to stay in emergency housing, I see how I can go to step one housing, and then step two, and then step three.
Commissioner, I just want to add on that, and also our efforts down in D.C. There was just a hearing last week on the bill that we've been advocating for, called the Fair Access to Co-ops for Veterans Acts. So right now, the VA home loan is not eligible to be utilized for co-ops, and as you all know, co-ops make a significant number of our housing supply in the city. So we're working diligently to push that forward, and this is the first time that it has been brought up to a hearing in which the VA has said that they support with amendments. So we're very happy and proud of the work we've done to get it this far, and we're hoping that it passes this legislative session.
Great, thank you so much.
There are many things, if I could add, there are many things we're doing behind the scenes to try to attack these issues. And it's, pies in the oven haven't come out to bake yet, but we are working at this on multiple angles. And to go back to your question, Chair, we need more housing coordinators. We need more claims coordinators. As far as the number, we will take whatever's available. Like, we're beggars can't be choosers. That's why I don't want to get caught in saying, give me double, give me triple. But whatever we receive, we will use because the need is great.
And just going back to Jason's comments, we certainly need affordable housing, which, in talking to some of the providers of supportive housing, they say we have vacancies in supportive housing. We just don't, to get them to transition into affordable housing has been the challenge here. Mm-hmm. And so, to your point about certainly the co-ops, and that's a very, very important aspect, because so many veterans are just like lingering in supportive housing when they should be in affordable at this point. And that's a problem with the providers are telling me. So we need to have a very, very good plan. And even talking to developers, and I'll, you know, if they want to build in my community, I said, well, you got to give a preference to veterans somehow, and let's get that. So, you know, in working out deals, it's very, very important. Most people would love, again, you know, a beautiful apartment anywhere in the city. If they, certainly affordability is a problem for veterans who were making next to nothing when they were in the service. So we kind of, we owe them any priority we can give them in New York City. So let's work on that. I appreciate the effort. And, okay, Councilmember Ariola has a question.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you all for coming. In May of 2022, Introduction 377 of 22, sponsored by Councilmember Borelli, was introduced to grant a real property tax exemption to Cold War veterans who served on active duty in the United States Armed Forces between September 2nd, 1945 and December 26, 1991, and were honorably discharged. This exemption would apply to the veteran's primary residence, and the exemption would be for 15% of the assessed value of the residential property, capped at $39,000, which would remain in effect for 10 years. Additionally, Cold War veterans who are disabled due to their service would be eligible for an additional exemption of up to $130,000. So my questions are as follows. What is the administration's position on this property tax exemption to Cold War veterans? Have other municipalities successfully implemented one? What is the estimated impact fiscally on the city's budget if the property tax exemptions were extended to include the Cold War veterans? And should Councilmember, now Minority Leader, Borelli's bill be reintroduced and passed, how does the city plan to implement and manage it?
Councilmember Ariola, thank you so much for the question. A couple things. One is I have to separate me as a veteran from me as commissioner on this one, because as a veteran, I'm absolutely in favor of this. I think it's important for our Cold War veterans. I hate we're having trouble identifying people self-identifying because they feel like, oh, I'm not a veteran, I didn't serve in this thing. I'm not a veteran, I didn't receive a Purple Heart. I'm not a veteran, one that got me. I'm not a veteran, I was a woman who served in Vietnam. You know, like, and that's, you know, so over and over again, things that we do that create these divisions, maybe for policy reasons or budget reasons, it's corrosive. And so I personally am completely in favor of us having some sort of property tax exemption for our veterans who served during times of peace. They took the oath, they deserve the benefits. That's me as an individual. As commissioner, it's not within my authority on this one because of where I'm focused charter-wise. I'm empowered to deal with assisting and informing veterans on the areas I've mentioned. And so unfortunately, as commissioner, I'm limited with where I can weigh in, but as a citizen, as a veteran, I'm absolutely enthusiastic about seeing something like this come to fruition. On the other questions, the state of New York grants all tax jurisdictions the authority to institute 1, 2, or 3 different exemptions that regard veterans. One is the alternative veterans exemption, another is the eligible funds exemption, and the other is the Cold War veterans exemption. And so while a majority of tax jurisdictions in New York State have assigned all 3, New York City right now has 2 of the 3. So we do not embrace that Cold War veterans exemption. We do have consent from the state to enact it. So it is something that could be done. We do not at this time. So as far as background. And then our own estimate internally is that we believe approximately 15,433 peacetime era veterans in New York City own homes. So the number we have is 15,433 is our estimate. And so that's, you know, I pray that can be helpful to those who are looking at this. I wish I could, with an administration hat on, say certain things I can't, but I'm very much supportive of doing right by our veterans who serve in peacetime for their property tax exemption.
As are we. Thank you so much, Commissioner. Just one question, just quickly. I know that a lot of our veterans who are vendors have come into our offices to talk about, you know, the fact that it's hard for them to get their licenses, and when they do, then they don't have existing places that are for veterans. Are we any closer to having those license fees waived, and also areas that are specific for street vendors who are veterans within our city?
Sorry.
Yeah, Councilwoman, thank you so much for that question. Veteran street vendors are the closest thing to our hearts, I think, in the veteran community in New York City. I don't think you can get any more New Yorker or than a street vendor and someone who served our country and now is serving the constituents, both tourists and residents here in the city. We're constantly embracing legislation and programmatic solutions to how we can help them. On the topic of fee waivers, again, very much like the commissioner said in terms of the tax exemption, we're always in support of discussing ideas. We would have to discuss that with the appropriate city agencies who that funding affects, but nonetheless, we're welcome to those conversations. I also want to just call out that the Street Vending Advisory Board, we are in support of that Street Vending Advisory Board to have veteran representation and to explore how that is more of a concrete advocate on there. I think it's something that City Council and the street vendor community as a whole would appreciate.
Again, agreed. Thank you.
Just before I call on Councilmember Palladino, on the Cold War veterans, if we did pass that, have you looked at the numbers, by the way, how much it would cost the state or city in tax revenue?
We weren't able to put the numbers together because we did our estimate of how many veterans we believe are Cold War or peacetime era who own property. At the same time, what we weren't able to do, Mr. Chair, was get an idea of what is of those, how many own property valued at this tranche, how many own property valued at this tranche and valued at this tranche, things that could be used to help do the back
But
end
you could do a
yeah.
kind of a rough estimate, because I don't think we're talking about a lot of money here. And that's what my argument would be. We're not talking about millions and millions of dollars here that the state would have to, obviously would lose. Mm-hmm. It's a small exemption, and it's something I think that we should do. And I know you're supporting it, even though, on the other side of you can't say that, but I know that you support it because it would certainly be a deduction that they earn and deserve. So. The Cold War veterans. But anyway, if you could somehow, your agency can figure it out, or at least do a rough estimate, that would be a good argument to take to our colleagues.
Because I think what's tough here is this is squarely in the realm of the finance commissioner, and he has the receipts as far as having the data to get.
All right, then we'll work on it. Okay.
Yeah, but but I agree with Mr.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, Councilmember Palladino, questions.
Good afternoon, everybody. How are you? Thank you. I have a few questions. Resource and service referrals. The first 4 months of the fiscal year 24, 1,543 veterans and family members were referred to resources and services, and an increase of 49.5% as compared to the 1,032 people that were assisted in the same time period through fiscal year 23. In fiscal year 23, the number of veterans and their families whom referred to resources was 2,918, a decline of 59.5% since fiscal year 22, when it was 7,000 veterans. DVS has a target of 5,000 screenings for fiscal year 2024. Can you walk us through why the number of referrals has been fluctuating so significantly? That's one. Two, how many veterans have referred to resources to date in 24? And does DVS anticipate hitting the target in 2024?
Councilmember Palladino, thank you for joining us. It's an excellent question. Well, I think what we can first do is call out what the commissioner mentioned in the testimony, is that the agency is not, and just like our fellow sister agencies, any shortage of crises or things that are occurring out of our control. So some of the, I think, the reductions that you've referenced in your questions, those are correlated with the pandemic. But as you see the increase go up again, and the significant increase in service referrals that we're making, that's more, I think, reflective of, as I mentioned earlier, the partnerships that we've been able to establish with your city council offices, our pop-up veteran resource centers, and our social media and event outreach. More about getting out to the community, getting in front of veterans to have conversations with them has been a key of ours. But to really point out the fluctuation in data, that is purely we were a brand new agency in 2016. The commissioner came in 2020. The pandemic occurred in 2020 to 2022. Now we have a new crisis in our hands, as you know. So there's constant challenges that we face that are applying pressure to the agency in various ways. And we have to continue to be nimble on our feet to create new partnerships, as we have with all of you, to make sure that we're delivering the services that our veterans deserve wherever they are.
The other question I have is, concerning the mental health. We have the pop-up resource center in my office. Every other Wednesday, I want to give a shout out to Tanya Thomas for doing the fantastic work that she's doing. We have a lot of family members that come in that are either widowed, or it's a sister or a brother. What are we doing as far as the spouses go and the family members go to help address their mental health issues that they're having at this late date? After, because a lot of them are Vietnam vets, so they're suffering. I just want to know what are we doing to help them? How is the city of New York and the state of New York helping them?
Yeah, Councilwoman, I'll start, or Commissioner?
Yeah, I mean, for us, when our mandate, and thank you for the question too, Councilmember, our mandate is to focus on the veteran and their families. And so for us, it's the same offerings that we provide to our, our veterans. We also make available to families, but a lot of it, which we put on nyc.gov/vet mental health. It's referrals to different organizations that support in these areas, and it's making referrals to different service providers through Vet Connect. And so it's those types of things that we're doing, Madam Councilwoman. So a lot of it is, it's referrals on the mental health side. We have a mental health expert in-house, but it's not something that we directly triage ourselves. So oftentimes it's, letting our veteran and military families know about different services that are available to them.
Now, we would talk, my council member here, my colleague Joanne Ariola, brought up the vending. We have a lot of vendors in District 19, a lot of illegal vendors. What can we do to help felicitate our veterans to become licensed vendors so that they could do what they need to do to earn a living? Because we see a lot of illegal. Now with the migrants that are coming in, they're just setting up their carts and doing their business. I just want to know what we could do to help you.
So this is one of the things that we try to leverage our Veteran Business Leadership Association to help with. It's specifically formed to help provide technical assistance to our veteran entrepreneurs so that they can better navigate these paths. Also, we have our map of veteran-owned businesses, which we always encourage our veterans to place their establishments on. It's nyc.gov/vetbizmap. To be discoverable, because for us the goal is that if a larger corporation or a larger foundation is looking at contracting with someone, that they can find our people in that way. And so for us, it's the two-pronged approach between the technical assistance, and more information there is nyc.gov/vetbusiness, and then the just being discoverable. Madam Councilwoman?
Are you having a lot of people come out to apply, veterans coming out to apply for these applications to become vendors, or has it slowed down, leveled out?
Good question. I can't speak directly to street vendors. I can speak to one of our prior hearings where we said we estimated there to be 976 veteran-owned businesses in the city of New York. And right now, the map, I don't have the exact number, it's like 409 or so. Now I believe maybe a higher number that we do have, that we are aware of. So this is a way where we try to get folks to come under the umbrella so we can see them and better help them.
Now, I remember the last year's hearing, because it's our first one. I believe there was a vendor in the audience sitting, and they actually had their business set up outside. I believe it was the Museum of Natural History, whereas he sleeps in his truck for fear that if he moves it so much as a few feet, or chooses to go home, like he has to have a family member come and stay, he will lose his spot. What kind of insurance are we doing to make sure that these vendors have their secured locations, the way they used to have many years ago?
Well, Councilwoman, I do know that vendor you're talking about. That's the Hot Dog King.
Right, that's him,
yeah.
exactly.
Excellent vendor, and longtime, great advocate and champion for street vendor veteran community. We have an ongoing dialogue with Dan. The enforcement and the security of specific locations, that is a topic that we continuously discuss with our fellow city agencies, as these streets are not necessarily rental properties. So it's not as if there is a plot that is regular.
Years ago, you used to have your territory.
Yeah,
Like, that's where
right.
you were, and that's where you stayed, and you knew you could go to Jim the hot dog guy. He was always there every day, and nobody ever took his spot. But what I'm seeing today, which is very different, is that the illegal vendors that are just making themselves right to home, and they don't budge. And our guys who are here legally and want to set up a legal business are having a hard time in doing so. So just want to make sure the right guys get the right positions in the right spots.
That's right, Councilwoman. I think one thing to take away from this is ensuring that that doesn't result in an oversaturation of street vendors in
Yeah,
this.
and we're having that.
And that's something our community is very, very passionate about.
Thank
There
you.
are certain privileges and preferences that they were awarded, as you know, from the unlimited permits and fee waivers to unlimited permits to get their application seen. And there's good reason for that. And so that's why there's such a significant amount of advocacy to ensure that they keep caps on those other legal permitting. And as far as illegal permitting, whenever we're notified of anything like that, we appropriately, notify the agencies that are responsible for enforcement. Yes, you're welcome.
And I just want to add, too, that for us, we try to create opportunities for our street vending community to come together and have FaceTime with the different stakeholders in this space. And we did something like this this past November, where we brought representatives from parks, from police department, from sanitation, and other agencies there. We also have a website where I think it's nyc.gov/vet vendor or vet street vendor. I'll get that to you in a sec. It's vet vendor, I'm sorry, nyc.gov/vet vendor, where we make the contact information for all the appropriate agencies is there. So if a veteran has an issue, they know exactly who to go to about that issue. And so between the Veteran Business Leadership Association, between the MAP, between trying to constantly have communication with our people, we're trying to set things up where if a veteran street vendor has an issue, we can help accommodate that. And it's important to us very much so that we legally add a veteran position to the Street Vendor Advisory Board. That's the true seat at the table. That's very important to us. And so we are supportive of any measures taken to just legally make that fix so we can have one of our own in those discussions.
Yeah, and getting all the agencies on the same page has been the most difficult task. It's going on for years. So we are gaining some ground, at least in this. Fewer complaints from our veteran vendors. Is that the case that you're seeing?
I believe so. I believe that compared to where we were 1-2 years ago, that we're in a better place.
Right.
And one of the things, too, a lot of it is, I don't know who to go to. I have an issue, I don't know who to go to. And we
Right.
tried to demystify that. And so once again, it's nyc.gov/vet vendor. So someone knows exactly who to go to from each of the involved agencies.
We're going to have a future, in the future, we're going to have a hearing again on this because to gauge, are we improving the situation on the streets for our veterans, veteran vendors?
Yeah.
A few more questions, Commissioner, and then we'll let you go. In the November plan, there was an adjustment for the Joseph P. Dwyer Peer Support Program, which added $816,000 in fiscal year '24 and $416,000 to the baseline starting in fiscal year 2025. What services does this program provide, actually, and where are they located?
Thank you for that question. So the Dwyer program, it's a program launched by New York State to seed help-seeking activities for veterans. And so different municipalities receive the money and do things differently with it. And the money typically flows through the Office of Mental Health into whatever the local Department of Health is for that municipality, and then two, if they have a veterans organization, the veterans organization. And so for us, we're in a stage now where the goal for us is to not, many municipalities, I have colleagues I've spoken to who are county veteran service officers, leads for their counties, where everything from I've hired one nonprofit to run all Dwyer programming, I've seen that, to I took the Dwyer money and hired claims people because that's something that we really need. I've seen that. And for us, we're the only municipality that's receiving this money and said, look, we want to put as much of it as possible on the table for our community to vie for, that they might be funded in a hyper-local way. So if a local veteran organization would like to do some sort of event or some sort of activity, that they can apply for the funding. I've been told by the MOX commissioner that this will be released this week as far as veteran entities being able to apply to become vetted, and able to receive that money. As far as the funding amount, it's to be $416,000 per year in the future. We received money from 2022, 2023, and 2024 all at once. So when we look at a blip in it, it's because we just got
It was combined, yeah.
It's got,
Okay.
yeah. And then we had a spot where we needed to spend the 2022 money right away, lest it completely, age, so to speak. And so that we leveraged the request for expression of interest, which we had 19 respondents, and we got information from the community about things. Of those, we said, okay, let's, through micro purchases, fund 4 projects. One is a Zumba project involving American Legion posts in Harlem. Another is equine therapy in partnership with Columbia University. Another is like a Habitat for Humanity style project in Queens at a VSO, where it's about veterans coming together to refurbish this American Legion post. And another is yoga on Staten Island. And there have been 56 beneficiaries of folks whom we're tracking who've utilized it thus far for that legacy funding that was pushed.
Okay. There was a peg in the November plan which eliminated a DVS contract for JobPath platform, generating savings of $239,000 in fiscal year '24, and $236,000 in fiscal year '25, and $238,000 in fiscal year '26, and the out years. What services does this contract provide?
JobPath, thank you for the question. JobPath, it provided licensing and software for an online platform that allowed the military-affiliated community to explore opportunities in city government, as well as connect directly with hiring managers to see how they best can prepare for applications and interviews. The platform also included a translation tool that gave recommendations based on a user's military occupational specialty.
So, but how did the DVS come to a decision to eliminate this contract? What's the problem?
For us, it was on the heels of other pegs leading up, and we got to a place where we had to find the savings from something. And for this, it's a digital employment tool. There exists a digital employment tool that the Department of Defense has called Credentialing Opportunities Online, and a subsequent peer tool called MilGears that accomplishes the same effects. And since we had first entered the subscription with JobPath, the DoD's tool has advanced significantly. We were in talks with DoD also, and we saw what they were doing, and we said, look, it's painful to have to reduce something, but recognizing the duplication of services, if we have to make a cut, this will be where we will cut.
All right, there's and just a couple more questions. There's a concern about potential closures of American Legions, VFWs, and veterans halls within the city, which offer crucial support to struggling veterans, and it's a mentorship, among other things. It's a way to gather with veterans, and it's very, it's near and dear to me because I have a lot of veteran halls in the VSOs in my district. So how is DVS and the city assisting these organizations in working to ensure their continued operation? Because if we lose them, and we're losing some every year, so what is DVS doing and the city doing to try to keep them open?
This is another one of those questions that was on the surface and there's the undercurrent, and I want to speak to what's deeper here. We need to have more young veterans, more transitioning service members join these VSOs. At the end of the day, that's the real piece of it. On the surface, we do have a member of our fiscal ops team who serves as ombudsman, so if veterans have questions on contracting, the VSOs do, they can ask us these things. We also welcome our VSOs to receive technical assistance through the Veteran Business Leadership Association, as we would with any veteran business enterprise. But underneath that, it's inspiring and motivating more transitioning service members to say, look, I want to join that Disabled American Veterans chapter. I want to join that Veterans of Foreign Wars chapter, that American Legion chapter. And so this goes back to the work we've done to get the DoD to tell us who the transitioning service members are. We estimate 3,000 to 5,000 of all 200,000 people who leave the military each year, 3,000 to 5,000 come to New York City. Many come here for school. And so for us, it's how do we best engage you? Once we've engaged you, let's say, hey, would you like to join one of these veteran service organizations? Click here if you agree to us giving that VSO your contact information so they can follow up. And that ties back to there being a liaison citywide for the Veterans of Foreign Wars, for the American Legion. We're working to get one for DAV. And so we're hoping that through this modality, not just organic promotion, et cetera, but also through literally reaching out to people who are just getting out saying, hey, would you like for us to plug you into this local organization? That can be a way to get an injection of young talent into our entities.
Yeah, and some VSOs are doing a good job in that because they're recruiting more. We're hearing, though, from the VSOs that they are struggling to respond to violations they receive from the Department of Buildings. And I fully understand the importance of maintaining the structural integrity of all buildings in the city of New York, but the important thing is to try to work with the VSOs and DOB to try to ensure their safety, obviously, of the building, but to also not penalize our veterans, our VSOs, who are obviously struggling to support these buildings. So, do you ever jump into the fray here? Like if DOB gets involved, do you actually call them and say, look, can you give them a break on this, or can you give them another 60 days, or is there somewhere we could work together so they're not penalized? Because some of the VSOs go out of business because of this.
A couple of things. Just as an aside, I feel like this.
I know you got to adhere to the law, but I mean, do you ever step in? Because I've tried stepping in my office.
So this is something that we've met with, Commissioner Jimmy Otto from Department of Buildings about. We've discussed this about this situation specifically. Good. I don't want to get ahead of anything that Buildings is trying to do, but I can say that I'm certain that this is something that's near and dear to, the Buildings Commissioner's heart as far as what we can do in this area. For us, something we're trying to address here is, can we work with local unions to assist in certain things as far as instructing the VSOs on how to avoid certain things and helping them with triaging certain issues too, even if it's gratis as far as it's a training opportunity for that union, but it's a benefit for that department, for that veteran service.
That's a great idea, yeah.
And that's been our way of trying to work this. Meanwhile, we know that Department of Buildings is looking at what options they have available to them, because I'm tracking that some of the top fines involve low pressure boiler compliance is a top fine, and issues involving just boiler issues ultimately.
Right.
And it's 81 violations that tie in these ways. 14 are not having a certificate of completion. 11 violations are incremental penalties, where it's just been piling up because that hadn't been accounted for. So 81 violations largely deal with boiler issues, not all, but largely. And then you have 14 where there's no certificate of completion, and then 11 where there are incremental penalties that have built up. And so this is something we're in constant talks with DOB about it, while we're trying to work the union in to see if there's some way we can provide some gratis support and education to our VSOs.
Great. Well, there's some very good ideas with that. And we're working on legislation also to give extra time to some of the VSOs to cure their situation rather than fine them. They could get a warning. I think that would be an appropriate bill. Just again, two more questions. I think it's my priority, and I think it's your priority, that all of the city's veterans receive the support and services that they need, obviously. So what resources would be required to appoint one DVS liaison per city council district to serve as a dedicated outreach representative for veterans? I know my office has it. I think Palladino, Councilmember Palladino has it, and Areola, do you? No. See, that's where we went. Marmorato, we have a lot of veterans in our district. So what would that entail in funding to have 51 liaisons for all the council offices?
A couple of things to say. Just to once again level set, we're estimating 23,821 of our veterans, if they applied for service-connected disability compensation from the VA, they'd get it. So I just want to start with that. So it's roughly 24,000 or so of our
Right.
folks who, right away, and that's just service-connected disability. That's not even other aspects of VA claims, as that's one piece. Another piece is, it's a question of if you want just someone who's an outreach person or someone who is a claims accredited person who can help with claims. I personally argue, and I would argue that those who've had VRCs would say that having someone who can do the claims, that's the work, that's the key thing. And so if that's the case, you're really talking about having someone at the salary of, say, a community coordinator, which is, just under $60,000 available, for the 51 council districts. It's a lot. I just want to call that out. But to me, if you meet this question that you're asking, it really is having someone who can work this thing full-time and who's accredited to do claims work. And that's the best way to attack it, Mr. Chair.
And we're talking about once every 2 weeks. We're not talking about every day to come in.
Good point. So for me, this is more so me laying out it's once every 2 weeks. And then there's the math that can occur behind that, which I'm sorry I haven't
So
done.
you wouldn't
but
have to hire 51,
Yep, you don't have to have,
yeah,
but if
yeah.
you're telling yourself, okay, well, I've got once every 2 weeks by how many, offices, and knowing that you have to give someone time to actually do the work, not just in that office. The office, a lot of intake discussions are occurring, a lot of initial things are occurring, but that person will need time to actually work behind the scenes to prepare things. So you'd say maybe a one day, at least one day, not in the office, just working for each day
Yeah.
facing clients. and
But have you worked up a model for that? Let's say it's a goal.
I haven't. I'm just laying foundations
Well,
for it.
we'll let
Yeah.
Jason work on that. All right, Jason?
But
you-
the
you
foundations for the good of the group is that to have someone who's doing this
Right.
full time, as far as 5 days a week, is, you tell yourself $60,000, and then to
Yeah.
go back saying, hey, for each district, you're talking about 1 day on, 1 day off, as far as 1 day visible and they're meeting folks, 1 day working on those claims and whatnot. And so that's enough to get the core math together with.
And maybe there are potential grants out there that we could tap
I want to
into.
throw to Jason on this point.
That's what, yeah.
Yes. So first off, Chair, again, excellent question, and I want to thank you and the Queens delegation for inviting us to talk about what benefits claims coordinator would look like. So I would reference that the costs associated with that, we hope could be considered again by the delegation that we submitted in our testimony. In the near future, we hope to share the same as it relates to the other boroughs and what cost differences they are, because there are a different number of council members in each borough. So we do intend to share that information with every borough delegation so that they're aware of what that cost is, and at the appropriate time consider those financial costs. But to the commissioner's point, the federal legislation that is Senate number 106, it's the Commitment to Veterans Support and Outreach Act. This is something that we and our state directors across the country all support. Every state director in all 50 plus states support this bill, and this bill would allow for the VA to provide funding to increase the number of service officers per county and enhance the outreach to assist with the development and submission of claims. So I will be more than happy to share more information about that bill to each of your offices so that you guys can track it. And if you'd like to work with us to submit a resolution, a letter of support.
That'd be great.
All
right.
We'd appreciate that.
Terrific. And my final question is on RTM therapy. Various studies have demonstrated that reconsolidation of traumatic memories, known as RTM, and meditation are effective approaches to addressing post-traumatic stress disorder and other mental health concerns among veterans. Has DVS explored collaborating with other city agencies or nonprofits to pilot a program to provide RTM and meditation classes for our city's veterans?
So we have spoken with the Office of Community Mental Health about RTM, which we wholeheartedly support. We've also helped to spread the word about the Walter Reed study that is currently involving the R&R project. And, we know that they are tied with, Operation Warrior Shield, one of our nonprofits in the community. So as far as we are very bullish on RTM, and we enjoy what they do, and we have done what we can to socialize this accordingly, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, because there are, and again, my office is prepared to put money aside for a small study that would you know, it would be like, let's say if I funded at $50,000, we can see the outcomes. So we're not talking about a lot of money again, and we're not talking, with RTM at least, it's not that long. I mean, it could be 5 sessions where you can see a difference in the veteran. So I think that's worth exploring. It's worth some seed money that we do more outreach and more kind of programs and monitor the results of that. So let's get behind it. I think we're both, in mental health, we're not doing enough. We know that as a country. So if we at least try to come up with solutions, and RTM seems very promising. I know we grasp onto things like that, you know, things that we want to work, but this one seems to have the outcomes already in the smaller studies. So if we can get behind that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you again.
On RTM,
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, we will get the word out when and if that time comes, as far as, hey, we're looking for folks to, you know, on either end of it, between people who are trained to counsel in the modality or folks who need it. Like, we're happy to get that word out when that time comes.
Yeah,
Just
the
wanna
great thing
underscore
with
that.
RTM, there's a lot of doctors that are already trained. That was the problem, to try to get doctors trained. They've done that. So it's almost like in every community, you can find a doctor trained in RTM therapy. So that's why it's convenient. It's not just going into Manhattan. You can get RTM trained doctors in every community practically, and even Long Island. So I think there's enough of doctors, because I did do the research on it, and so I did actually recommend some veterans for that therapy, and they seem to love it so far. So thank you, Commissioner, again. Thank you and your staff for a terrific hearing, and I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So before we go to the
Right, I
public,
gotta read
you're
that.
going to
Okay.
read the new thing.
Okay.
Yep. And then I'm ready to call the first.
So we're going to open the hearing to public testimony. I remind members of the public that this is a formal government proceeding and that decorum shall be observed at all times. As such, members of the public shall remain silent at all times. The witness table is reserved for people who wish to testify. No video recordings or photography is allowed from the witness table. Further, members of the public may not present audio or video recordings as testimony, but may submit transcripts of such recordings to the Sergeant at Arms for inclusion in the hearing record. If you wish to speak at today's hearing, please fill out an appearance card with the Sergeant at Arms and wait to be recognized. When recognized, you will have 2 minutes to speak on today's hearing topic on the preliminary budget. If you have written statement or additional written testimony you wish to submit for the record, please provide a copy of that testimony to the Sergeant at Arms. Regina, please call our first panel.
Okay, the first panel will be Erin Verrier, Timothy Pena, Marcus Staffney, and Cleopatra Brown. If you'll please just come up and take a seat, and you may begin when you are ready.
All right, hi, and thank you all for having me to present today. My name is Erin Verrier, and I am the Manager of Policy and External Affairs at Community Healthcare Network, otherwise known as CHN. We are a federally qualified health center with 14 sites citywide that provide critical primary care and social services for patients. We reach over 50,000 individuals annually, and we welcome patients of all ages, regardless of their ability to pay. So while our services are many, I'm here today to speak about the work we do for veterans. CHN's Military Health and Wellness Program provides a comprehensive array of services to veterans and their families, from on-site mental health care to primary care services. Each program participant is screened and assessed for mental health needs by a licensed clinical social worker and can, as needed, receive referrals to CHN's behavioral health team. Accordingly, participants can access behavioral health services like individual and family counseling, psychiatry, and medication management, and be connected to other services like legal support, medical care, dental services, and more. Today, our program serves up to 100 patients annually. The Military Health and Wellness Program is also unique in its collaboration with the Veterans Advocacy Project, which provides legal support services, assistance with public benefits, VA claims, discharge upgrade applications, housing, and other civil legal issues. The Veterans Advocacy Project works with CHN staff to ensure continuity of care and provide staff training on cultural competency when working with veterans and understanding their legal needs. In all, we greatly appreciate the support we receive from City Council for our program and look for this funding to continue moving forward as it is an honor to serve our veteran population. I appreciate the time to share our program with you.
Thank you. Press the button.
Good morning. My name is Dr. Cleopatra Brown. I am a Cold War veteran with a service-connected disability. I've served 6 years in the United States Navy on active duty, followed by 2 years in the Navy Reserves. I am a homeowner in Brownsville. My father was also a veteran who served in the Korean War. I am the chairperson of Community Board 16 Veterans Affairs Committee, the founder of Brooklyn's Veterans Appreciation Parade and Resource Fair, and the chair of Friends for Veterans. I am proud to say that I am a veteran. I thank the New York City Council Committee on Veterans for this opportunity to speak on behalf of Community Board 3 and Community Board 16 Veterans Committee and those veterans who are unable to attend the budget hearing. On behalf of Community Board 3 and Community Board 16 Veterans Affairs Committee, I stand before this committee for the following reasons. Real property tax exemption for Cold War veterans. We respectfully request that the New York City Department of Finance recognize and consider establishing a real property tax exemption for Cold War veterans under the New York State Real Property Tax Law 458B. Currently, upstate New York and several counties in the New York State, including Hempstead, Rockland, Suffolk, and Nassau counties, have adopted the legislation that established real property tax exemption for Cold War veterans, including those who served during the Lebanon War. However, according to the New York City Department of Finance, only veterans who served during the following conflicts qualify for real property tax exemption. That's the World War I, World War II, Korean, Vietnam, Gulf War, Iraq, and Afghanistan's veterans. Cold War veterans are being told that they do not qualify as veterans because of the New York City real property tax exemption law does not recognize them. Also, number 2, veterans' preference for affordable housing. Veterans should be given preference when applying for HPD newly constructed developments listed in Housing Connect. Currently, community board residents receive 50% preference, and city employees receive 10% preference. But veterans, those who have served and protected and fought for this country's democracy, receive no preference. We respectfully request that the veterans be given 30% preference to affordable houses listed in Housing Connect and the condo home ownership process being created in New York City. Third, I'm almost finished. Jobs for veterans. We kindly request your assistance in collaborating with state and federal elected officials to create legislation that will reserve job opportunities for veterans at the city, state, and federal levels. This would allow them to receive credit for their military service time, which will be added to their years of civilian service, thereby increasing their retirement annuity. We also suggest increasing the budget to hire and train veteran specialists resource to work in non-veteran healthcare facilities and city workplaces to assist veterans in obtaining the necessary benefits and disability compensation they are entitled to. Fourth, transition from military to home portal. We respectfully request that you increase the budget to develop a portal exclusively for veterans. The portal should contain a list of city, state, and federal jobs set aside for veterans, as well as affordable HPD units for them and their families. We will ensure that when servicemen and women return home from active duty, they can easily apply for these jobs and housing units, which are exclusively earmarked to them. Legal services. We request that funds be allocated to legal services organizations serving veterans to assist with submitting and appealing claims for disability compensation and discharge upgrades for those unfairly given other than honorable or dishonorable discharges due to racism and discrimination. Community organizations. We kindly request that you increase the budget to allocate funds to local veteran organizations, such as, but not limited to, the American Legion Post, the Disabled American Veterans, Vietnam Veterans of America, Black Vets for Social Justice, and the National Association of Black Military Women. In addition, providing funding to community boards with veteran committees to conduct outreach events aimed at providing veterans with resources and informing them of the benefits to which they are entitled. I conclude, Korean veterans were left behind. Vietnam veterans left behind, and Cold War veterans were left behind. We cannot continue allowing a generation of veterans to be lost because we failed to speak up and speak out against the heartfelt issues concerning our veterans. I stand on the founding principle of the Vietnam Veterans of America. Never again will one generation of veterans abandon another. We cannot undo the past, but we can take this opportunity to reevaluate how we are treating our veterans in the present. President Biden eloquently stated, the only truly sacred obligation we have is to prepare and equip those women and men we sent into harm's way and care for them and their families when they return home. It brings us together to make sure that men and women who are willing to lay down their lives for us get the very best from us in return. May God bless you. May God bless the New York City Veterans Committee, and may God bless all that gathers here together. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. Thank you.
Yes.
Chairman Holden and the esteemed members of the Committee of Veterans, my name is Marcos Staffney, Executive Director of Gallup NYC, and I'm here to advocate for a reinstatement of $85,000 in funding for our Veterans Program. For over 11 years, we provided therapeutic horsemanship programs at no cost to our veterans at our locations in Queens and Brooklyn, specifically Gallup NYC Forest Hills and Gallup NYC Sunrise Stables located in Howard Beach. Our program offers veterans invaluable opportunities for healing and growth through interactions with horses, fostering mindfulness, teamwork, and improved communication skills. Therapeutic horsemanship has been proven effective in alleviating symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder and brain injuries, empowering veterans to lead healthy and productive lives. We also see veterans give back to our community that serves New Yorkers with disabilities as they volunteer their time to assist others in adaptive horseback riding. With your support, we can continue providing weekly riding lessons and access to our facilities, ensuring that cost is not a barrier to access for our veterans and their families. I invite each of you to witness firsthand the transformative impact of our Veterans Program at Gallup NYC Sunrise Stables in Howard Beach. Your support is essential in honoring the commitment and sacrifice of our veterans. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Chair, if I might, I just want to really reiterate what was already said. Gallup NYC is an incredible resource for our veterans, for our seniors, for our young people. And the work that you do at Sunrise Stables is amazing. And, you know, we come down there with the staff and, you're just always there for the community. I invest my constituents' tax dollars in Gallup NYC, and I really hope that my colleagues will do the same, because you help people across the 5 boroughs, not just in the community that you are. So thank you for the work that you're doing.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you.
Good morning.
Mike?
Oh, good morning. Nice to see you, Chairman Holden. My name is Timothy Pena. I run an organization called the Forgotten Veteran. I'm here today to talk about mental health and the veterans who are currently in our shelters and in need of services. And I have a couple of suggestions that I would like to offer City Council. One, in 2016, I had pretty much crashed and burned, and I ended up being homeless and on the street in Phoenix. I was referred to a grant per diem program in Phoenix by the VA, which is a program, transitional program, set up for VA-eligible veterans to receive access to housing resources, mental health, nutrition, and various other services to help them transition from homelessness into the civilian world. I ran the front desk. I was a front desk clerk for about 2 years with Catholic Charities in Manor House in Phoenix. I made $300 a month as a stipend for the front desk, and I also ran their social programs for another $150 a month in stipend. The stipends are important because what it did was it gave me confidence. It also gave me job skills that I otherwise did not have. And we have, one of the main focuses was on community engagement and mental health. I'm looking at some of the numbers. I spent 5 months in Borden Avenue when I first came to New York City, and in the grant per diem program, and I was disappointed. From daily assaults on veterans to drug overdoses and deaths. In the nearly 2 years that I spent at Manor House in Phoenix, we never had a single incident, never had a single overdose, never had a single death. We are placing such an emphasis on processing veterans instead, and I disagree with getting to know the veteran, having them come for other services before we provide them access to mental health and a mental health screening. I'm in support of housing through the HASA program. I had my apartment sat empty for months while I sat in Borden Avenue, being prevented from moving in because of my processing. This is critical. We have veterans who are sitting in our shelters for 6 months, 8 months, year, 2 years, and more, who are just stagnating. Their mental health is in a shambles. And one of the reasons why we're seeing heightened drug usage is because we've pretty much lost all hope. My background in transitional services and a background in working with transitioning veterans, mostly out of prison into the civilian world, that's my forte. Mental health is key. Food is key. Getting sleep is key. And having community engagement is key to the mental health of the veterans. We can go through anything if we have someone who we know has our back. I disagree with, or I agree, however you want to look at this. I think that there needs to be more mental health screening, And I think that we need to put a higher emphasis on the living conditions for the veterans who are living in our shelters and giving them better access to outreach programs, outreach services, and certainly mental health as far as things of Gallup NYC, those things. There are programs. We're supposed to have transportation for these type of things. When I was in Phoenix, we had baseball tickets every game. We had VFWs would have dinners for us. Football games, trade shows, hiring events. In the 5 months at Borden Avenue, we had none of that. So I would like to put it out there that I lived. When I first went into the shelter or went into the program in Phoenix, I was pretty much ready to commit suicide. And when I came to New York City, I had a tough year for 2021, and I got pretty much within a hair's breadth of committing suicide at Christmas. And so when I came here, I specifically looked and sought out programs and opportunities where mental health was going to be one of the supportive services that I received, and I have that. And I'm in VA mental health. But one of the things that I'm seeing is these guys are not going in, and they're, just like Commissioner Hendon said, we're not self-identifying, and that's because we're not being approached, and we're not being approached in a way that is not adversarial. So, thank you.
Thank you, Timothy. Tell us about how long were you waiting for supportive housing while you were at Borden? You said that there was a delay. Your apartment was vacant. How long of a period was that?
I had my apartment 1 week after getting to New York City in July 2022.
So you waited 5 months?
Yes.
For the processing?
Yes.
And what was the answers that you got from, what agency were you applying for?
Sorry, but DVS.
DVS. And there was a 5-month delay while you knew that the apartment was vacant?
Yes.
Because when I went up to visit the Bronx facility, supportive housing, and where was that, by the way? Where was your supportive housing?
Mine's over on 29th Street and 8th Avenue.
All right, but in speaking to the provider, they said they had a lot of vacancies.
Yeah.
Which, to me, first of all, I don't believe Borden should even be a shelter for veterans. It should be
transitional program.
Yeah, veterans should go right into supportive housing. They've earned that. So that's my goal, is to not have a homeless shelter for veterans. And I know that's something that we could do. We could do that today if we just put
if we
the
wanted
resolve.
to.
Yes, if like you said, there are problems at Borden. I witnessed it. However, we're trying to improve it. And what I did get the complaint from veterans at the Borden shelter every time I go, that they're not getting the mental health like you had mentioned, like they should get.
Right.
And so we're trying to fix that in new programs, and obviously NYU has a very good program in mental health. So does RTM is a very good, has some great hope to get veterans the treatment they need. But we need to, what you mentioned, we need to really seriously look at Borden as an option, and especially when supportive housing is vacant, and that's what I'm hearing from not only from you but from providers. Dr. Brown, you're a great spokesperson for our veterans, and keep it up. Because this is a very good document. I'm going to use this for a lot of our recommendations. We do have, Councilman Borelli has a bill on the Cold War exemptions that you had mentioned. So we're going to try to get that going and hopefully pass the City Council within my lifetime, let's say. But I think it's very, very important that we do most of the things, or at least all the things on your testimony, and I thank you for that. Thank you for everyone. And I'll get out to Gallup. We got to go out there, and I'll do that shortly. Maybe some of my colleagues will join me. All right, thank you. Thanks, panel. You were there.
I'm putting together.
Thank you so much. I'd like to call the second panel. Janine Costley, Peter Kempner, Deirdre Rice-Reese, and MJ Akma. And you may start when you all are here and ready.
We'll start from this side. You can go first, yeah.
Good afternoon, Councilman Holden. Good to see you again, sir. Good to see all of you. Happy Women's History Month. I am testifying on behalf of Samaritan Daytop Village. I am a United States Air Force Cold War veteran. I did not know we were going to be talking about that today, so I was excited to hear that it's advancing the ball. RTM, another thing that excited about for us to partner with a state organization and/or city council to provide a randomized study. I know that there was a study done in 2019, about 74 veterans, but happy to have that. For those of you who are unfamiliar with Samaritan Daytop Village, we are one of the largest substance abuse and mental health treatment providers in the city, and of course have programs upstate. Our veterans capacity is 120 men and women, mostly in individualized gender-specific programming, 2 in New York City, 1 in Queens, the other in Manhattan, and the women's program in the Mid-Hudson, first of its kind for women veterans. A big part of what we manage with City Council support is the sober engagement and mental health supports that veterans need to engage in. As I heard the Commissioner talk about screening for mental health, I think a key thing or a significant element would be to do a smaller, brief screening that would allow for the introduction of information for mental health and then trigger, because there are screening tools called a modified mini, other things that would trigger further assessment if the veteran is willing, without being intrusive at the initial interview. For us, being able to support those sober engagement activities, such as a pilgrimage to DC, going to the monuments, going to some of the other supports. We use a Serenity model for horsemanship. We use a couple of other supports throughout the city that allow us to encourage engagement and sober engagement activities for our veterans. We also need support in developing our workforce, continuing to develop our workforce. Some of the stigma around alcohol and substance use disorders, as well as mental health disorders, pushes some of our veterans and others away from working in the field because they don't want to be judged, they don't want to be connected to having a problem or have issues. And so for us, having veteran-supported peer recovery individuals that can intern and learn how to support other veterans, from our legends, and that's those that I call those over 50, to our legacy, those under 25, being able to really nurture and support, enhance, develop, hold hands with veterans as they navigate systems, including DVS's system and the VA's system. Being able to support veterans overall for mental health, substance use disorder, and sober engagement is really our goal, and we've worked really hard at being proficient at it. So I ask you all to restore and/or engage our funding ask for both workforce development, sober engagement, and mental health supports And I thank you all again. Happy Women's History Month. We rule.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Holden and members of the Committee on Veterans. My name is MJ Okuma with SAGE, and I'm here to deliver testimony on behalf of my colleague, Brian Elcott, who's the SAGE Vets Program Manager. SAGE Vets is the only program in New York designed to address the unique needs of older LGBTQ+ veterans who are twice as likely to face housing insecurity compared to their non-LGBTQ+ peers. The veterans we represent are no different than any other veterans of the U.S. military. Most are profoundly patriotic and served during conflicts abroad, taking home with them significant trauma. What is unique about the veterans that we serve is they're often burdened by additional forms of trauma. Discrimination against LGBTQ+ service members that are deeply embedded in military history frequently led to severe situations ranging from abuse to military sexual trauma. This compounding trauma can be so repressed that it goes untreated for decades, causing irreparable harm. Because of this, many older LGBTQ+ veterans have not utilized potentially life-saving services, government benefits, and programs that they rightfully deserve. This is where SAGE Vets makes the biggest impact, helping veterans get on a path to recovery and improved wellness. Once we connect with a veteran, SAGE Vets supports them every step of their way on their healing journey at a pace that is guided by their individual comfort levels. Once a veteran is ready, we proceed with referrals to life-changing services, including mental health support, creating eligibility for VA healthcare, discharge upgrades, and disability comprehensive compensation benefits. We also partner closely with the City and State Department of Veterans Services and groups such as Black Veterans for Social Justice and American Military Retirees Association. SAGE Vets can do this work because of the support from the City Council. In the fiscal year 25 budget, we respectfully request a restoration of $100,000 under the Legal Services for Veterans Initiative to continue this vital work. Because of the support from the City Council, we've expanded our reach to more LGBTQ+ older veterans in every borough, connecting them to our social programming and support groups. We've also been able to successfully secure discharge status upgrades through the restoration of honor, as well as aid in eviction prevention, blind annuity benefits, public services connections, and disability rating increases for our participants. More details can be found in my submitted written testimony. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Holden, members of the committee. My name is Peter Kempner, and I'm the Legal Director at Volunteers of Legal Service. The VOLS Veterans Initiative, which is part of our senior law project, strives to empower older New Yorkers who served in the military to age in place with dignity and access their legal rights and live without fear of eviction. Our free legal services assist low-income older veterans in making key decisions about incapacity and end-of-life care by providing last wills and testaments, powers of attorney, healthcare proxies, living wills, and other advanced directives. These documents enable our clients to ensure that their dying wishes are fulfilled and that they're able to maintain income and services during their lifetime. We also enable our clients' caregivers to make medical decisions in line with their beliefs. Our guides, fact sheets, workshops, and trainings are aimed at overcoming confusion about planning for the future. VOLS's Veterans Initiative is also part of our Microenterprise Project. For over 20 years, the VOLS Microenterprise Project has helped existing and aspiring small business owners and micro-entrepreneurs access high-quality free legal services. For many veterans, owning a small business is an effective path to financial stability and independence upon their return from service. VOLS aids with drafting contracts, reviewing government documents, protecting intellectual property, and advising on commercial leases. And recently, we've actually been working with a number of veteran vendors that were talked about earlier. Each year, the United States Department of Veterans Affairs conducts a survey in which participants point out what are the unmet needs of veterans. And in last year's survey, which came out in October of 2023, 8 out of the 10 top unmet needs were legal in nature. In fiscal year 2024, the New York City Council dedicated $600,000 to its Legal Services for Veterans Funding Initiative to help bridge the access to justice gap for our city's veteran communities. The 7 legal services providers who receive this funding provide veterans with legal assistance on a broad range of matters. And thanks to this initiative, these legal services organizations not only dedicate critical staff resources to providing veterans focused legal services, but they're also able to leverage these resources to harness thousands of hours of pro bono support from the private bar as well. A city's budget is a moral statement of priorities, and with a proposed budget of over $109 billion for fiscal year 25, the amount of funding dedicated to providing free legal services to veterans is small but critical. It is imperative that meeting the legal needs of New York City's veteran community remains either at current funding levels or is increased so that we as a city can ensure that the legal needs of those who sacrifice in service to our country are met. Thank you very much for allowing us to submit this testimony, and we look forward to working with you to ensuring that New York City is a place where veterans feel welcome and at home. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, Chair Holden and members of the Committee on Veterans. Thank you for this opportunity to testify. I am Dr. Janine Donette Cosley, Senior Vice President for the Transitional Services at the Institute for Community Living, or ICL. Our oversight is the Borden Avenue Veterans Shelter. ICL is one of the largest providers of housing and behavioral health services for children, adults, and families. We serve 13,000 people annually in our 140 programs across the 5 boroughs, including clinics, shelters, residences, and community-based programs. People get better at ICL because of our whole health approach. It addresses all aspects of well-being and reduces health disparities. First, Chair Holden, thank you for your support of ICL's Borden Avenue Veterans Shelter, New York City's only residence dedicated to veterans experiencing homelessness. Your leadership has helped us to secure upgrades to the sleeping arrangements across the facility, securing private sleeping arrangements and spaces to help our veterans restore dignity for our nation's heroes. Second, thank you to the New York City Council for your commitment to human service workers. The COLA is greatly appreciated and so needed. I'm here today to talk about the city's concurrent mental health and homelessness crises, particularly for our city's veterans, and what needs to be done to ensure nonprofits like our own can help to continue to serve those who are most affected. Many residents at the Borden Avenue Veterans Shelter have seen combat and are living with trauma related to their service, in their personal lives, and in their experience of the trauma of homelessness. To best support our veteran residents, we encourage the development of wraparound service provisions for the veteran population. This would assist with mental health challenges for veterans living in our adult congregate care settings to achieve the treatment and community living goals that they need. This whole health support, which underscores everything we do at ICL, would include medication management, nutrition, economic and job stability, and access to more permanent supportive housing. We know that the added stress from unstable living conditions results in poorer mental health outcomes, and the lack of stable housing presents challenges for us as we offer care and support to our veterans. ICL moved 100 veterans out of Borden into permanent housing in fiscal year 22. Our newest supportive housing development, the Nevins Street Apartments, includes 20 units for veterans, but so many more units are needed. New York City has reduced veterans' homelessness by nearly 90% since 2011. In December 2015, it became the largest city in the country to be certified by the federal government for ending chronic veterans' homelessness. But with the hundreds of veterans still in shelters and many more on the streets, we still need to do better. Moreover, we need to re-envision the shelter system. We are operating within a framework that lacks sufficient investment and support. There have been no increases or adjustments to reflect the growing costs of essential items such as food, insurance, and operational expenses. This trend is unsustainable, and it threatens the viability of nonprofit organizations like our own. To compound on these challenges, nonprofits like ICL must regularly borrow money for services contracted by the city due to delayed payments from the city. This strains our financial resources and forces us to incur unnecessary interest expenses. Investing in nonprofit workforce is crucial to ensure our veterans receive the necessary care that they deserve. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Doctor. And ICL does a wonderful job. The Nevin Street we should replicate that. And really hearing the success stories when we cut the ribbon to open it was a great inspirational visit because we got to speak to veterans who told their stories. And I think ICL, if we could just get more funding, you're right. And especially at the board and shelter, which I think I'd love to improve the food there. We have a great kitchen. I'd like to bring back the cooking on premises.
Yeah, we would love that,
Yeah,
Councilman.
and so if you could tell me again, and this could be offline, but how much extra funding you'd need to bring that back? Give me a number, and we'll try to fight for the budget for our veterans. But it's an important aspect.
Yes.
Rather than the small little trays of food that they, pre-packaged, let's say. Let's cook real food there on the premises, like we used to have before the pandemic.
We did. For food and for mental health services is so needed.
Those two areas are very important. And, and tell us what programs for mental health are working the best that you see. Because I always ask, what's the outcomes and who's doing the best job? And so that's why I want to bring in, RTM there and possibly, give more funding to NYU, who I feel they're doing a great job, and we've gotten some good feedback. But thank you all for your wonderful testimony, and please keep in touch with my office because we do have hurdles obviously to improve some of our veteran services, but you all on the front lines, and I thank you for all your work on behalf of our veterans. Thanks.
Thank you to this panel. Before we turn to the Zoom witnesses, we want to make sure that no one else is here who wishes to testify and has not yet filled out an appearance card, including these people who signed up in advance: Tarak Kauf, Gus Stavroulakis, and Bernard Wright. Anyone else here who wants to testify in person? Seeing no one, we will turn to the Zoom panelists. I'll call the Zoom panelists individually. Our hearing host will unmute you, and our sergeant will let you know when you can begin your testimony. So we will start with the first Zoom witness, Edward Schloman.
You may begin. You may begin.
Do we have him? Is he unmuted? Edward? All right, you want to go to the next one and we'll figure out? Right.
Yeah, you could just say circle back.
We'll circle back to Edward.
Okay, having some trouble with Edward Schloman. Let's go to our second panelist. We'll come back to you. Second person is Coco Culhane. Coco Culhane.
You may begin.
Hi. I don't know if I'm...
We got you. Okay.
Okay. My name's Coco Culhane from the Veteran Advocacy Project. Thank you for your time today. Just wanted to make a few points, sort of reiterating what Peter Kempner said about how important the legal services are in terms of removing barriers to housing and stability, income. The investment pays off tenfold. Also want to urge that the expansion of benefits counselors at DVS is just so critical. The feedback we are getting is that people are waiting months and months from the state reps to DVS or wherever they're trying to get services because places are just overwhelmed. The original 8 big VSOs that were in the regional office at the VA, only 4 are still open. It's really a critical need, and I'm thrilled to hear that the council wants to support that for DVS. On housing, the need for legal services, even with the right to counsel, veterans are being left behind. We turn away so many veterans from our own services because we don't have the capacity. We are the subcontractor for 2 of the 4 SSVF providers in New York City, and yet, still just cannot keep up with the need. So really hope to see, if not a expansion in the legal services money, at least staying at that level since it's so critical. And then finally, just want to put in another push to have, I'm not sure where the legislation is, remembering Paul Vallone and his first bill about tracking services, the use of city services for veterans, so that we can really see what the need is and what is it that veterans are accessing, and seeing some kind of legislation. I think something was introduced in the last year or so. I'm not sure what happened. I just think it's so critical that we actually know what are the veterans using, where is the need, so that we can properly direct
Time has
not only
expired.
city resources, but nonprofit resources as well. Thank you.
Thank you. The next witness is Crystal Brockington.
You may begin.
Good morning. This is not Crystal. My name is Brendan Gibbons. For some reason, I was sent the wrong link.
Okay, you can go ahead, Brendan.
Okay. The reason I'm on here today is I'm a veteran from the city. I also am the commander of a VFW post within your district, Councilman Holden. I'd like to thank everybody for being here today anyway, but I also just wanted to bring up quickly, I only have 2 minutes. I just wanted to say that New York City DVS has been doing a lot of outreach, and unfortunately they don't have enough support staff. I personally experienced this. I know they've changed a lot of things and they're working very hard to make it better. I just hope that the New York City Council decides to give more funding to DVS for not only their own staff, because they definitely need more people processing claims. One of the problems you have is they're doing tons of outreach, but we do not have people. They don't have the time to be processing the claims because they're out doing the outreach. They're out educating people about programs and things that are available, but they don't have the time to actually process it. And without more personnel, I feel like they're never going to be able to accomplish that. It's like being a Band-Aid being put on the wound. You're never actually going to be able to fix anything. You're just delaying it. And I know tons of veterans that have been waiting and waiting, and they cannot get people to help them. And especially when it comes to claims benefits, it's extremely important. It's a lot of money to financially help the veteran, but also money that goes back into the city. And as far as I'm concerned, that's one of the major things that really needs to help. And having gone through this process myself, within the last 2 years, I had to educate myself and fight to get some benefits for myself. And it's an extremely difficult process. And I hope that there is more funding provided to not only New York City Department of Veteran Services, but also stuff to help other VSOs that are out in the city, like VFWs, American Legions. I'm a member of many organizations, but unfortunately, they all seem to be disappearing because a lot of the younger veterans do not want to join for some reason.
Time has expired.
At the same point, our operating costs are through the roof, just like everything else. So finding donations and funding is very difficult. And I thank you all.
Thank you, Brendan.
Our next witness is DeQuincy Brown.
You may begin.
I'm sorry, DeQuincy Bowen.
You may begin when you're ready.
Quincy, can you unmute yourself? On the lower left of your screen? Yeah. Do we have Edward back? No? Because I see that he's still muted. Can we unmute? No? Okay.
You seem to be having some trouble on the muting. We will try to come back to you, DeQuincy Bowen. Can we try Dr. Kimberly Moore? Kimberly Moore?
Yes, I'm here. How are you? Good morning.
Okay, we have you. Thank you.
Thank you. Dear Chairperson Holden, thank you for the Committee on Veterans for the honor and privilege of testifying before you today. My name is Dr. Kimberly Moore, Director of Care Cafe at the Yeshiva University's Wertzweiler School of Social Work. Care Cafe is our community-based program providing psychoeducational pop-up support cafes throughout the New York metro area, and our students and faculty have pioneered a targeted model of embedding Care Cafe programs in local community institutions. A portion of Care Cafe's funding is designated for veteran services. Sadly, our program's funding for the 2024 fiscal year was cut by 98% and cut by 100% for veteran services. Over the last year, though, the Care Cafe program has strengthened and expanded our partnerships with the goal of effectively engaging with service members and veterans across various areas of health promotion, including but not limited to self-care, suicide prevention, suicide education training series, psychological first aid, life transitions, and career exploration, and nutrition. However, connecting veterans to the necessary services and entitlements continues to be a challenge due to their unidentified status. It is important to note that special attention has been given to the urgency of collaborative planning, designing, and implementation of programming between the Wertzweiler School of Social Work and our veteran serving community partners. These efforts have included on-the-ground street outreach door-knocking activities at VFWs and American Legion posts and intercollegiate approaches to serving veterans with foundations of empowerment and mutual aid support in non-traditional settings. With each inquiry received by the Care Cafe program to serve our veterans, we are challenged by the scope and frequency of services offered. There is still much work to do. It is with clarity and acknowledgement that Care Cafe continues to
Thank you.
advance
Time has expired.
You can finish up. Go ahead.
Okay. It is with clarity and acknowledgement that Care Cafe continues to advance toward improving our efforts to serve service members and veterans. However, without the financial support of the City Council, we will continue to experience severe limitations to our capacity and saddened by the limitations of services we can offer to veterans and families in need. In closing, on behalf of Yeshiva University's Wertzweiler School of Social Work Care Cafe program, we humbly ask for your support. We thank you for the opportunity to share at today's meeting, and we look forward to continuing to proactively serving the greater community at large. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next witness is Leonard Williams.
You may begin.
You're good, Lenny.
Thank you for allowing me to come before the committee and speak. I was here since 10 o'clock, and I heard Commissioner Hendon and you, Councilman Holden, hit on mostly everything that I wrote down. I put everything on paper. And I'd like to start off. My name is Leonard Williams. I'm currently the president of the Vietnam Veterans of America, chapter number 32 in Maspeth, Queens, Councilman Holden's district. I just start off by saying that the government should take care of all veterans. I am a Vietnam veteran, and back then they missed us. It took a long time. As a matter of fact, maybe 5 years, I started getting active with the Vietnam veterans in any services. And what was said before is where they didn't have anything for us at the time. There was nothing. I got out of the service, and we turned around and said, okay, life goes on. It was amazing. I was in Vietnam one day, and then I was in New York City, the nearest bar, 3 days later, and life went on. Welcome home, life went on. What are you going to be doing? And they didn't have any services for us at that time. Recently now, as I said, I've been very active with Councilman Holden and the Vietnam Veterans of America and Commissioner Hendon. And just a couple of things, you reached out to the mental health services. And I ran into, I want to quickly talk about with that. I've brought up guys that wanted to suffer from PTSD. These are Iraqi, Afghanistan, the younger generation of the maybe the 25, 30-year-olds, and they don't want to come forward. A lot of them are police officers, fire department personnel, and so on and so forth. And they cannot come out, more or less come out as they are, because they worry about going into the rubber gun squad or something.
Thank you, time has expired.
That they will not, be able to do their services. So they refrain and they just keep on going on. I reached out to, numerous veterans shelters, Borden Avenue Shelter and the St. Albans Veteran Nursing Home. And I noticed we need, the biggest thing I was listening today is you need veterans services. Like Commissioner Hendon is a veteran, and I think he personally understands what other veterans go through. Outsiders don't realize, what we went through, even for basic training, Cold War veterans or whatever. We're our own community. We are our own community, and we need that. We need, like you're saying, the mental health issues or the partnership of with all other veterans organizations. A lot of things. I reached out to the American Legion, 1424 chapter, and I didn't get back. They never got back to me. The VFW over there in Maspeth, I've heard of them, but what we have to do, we have to bring this together. We have to bring these organizations together. Hopefully you can do it, Councilman Holden, is instead of having individuals, I speak to you a lot and, and we do a lot together, but I don't hear from the Manhattan BVA. I don't hear from the American Legion. I think we have to have a forum, a day on the calendar to bring us all in either at your office or the PLAB chat, the Polish American League, and all sit down and understand what's going on. There's so much going on. As Commissioner Hendon turned around and said, we're reaching out for this funding. We're doing this, and the VSO organizations. We rent. We need more funding for rent and all of that. We could do so much more with the Borden Avenue Shelter and the St. Albans Nursing Home, which we do a lot with now, and we could do a hell of a lot more, but the funding isn't quite there for us. We have operating expenses. We pay rent. We can't afford our own office or meeting hall. We don't have the monies to pay the rent for that. So we share with the Polish American League organization over in Maspeth. And in Maspeth themselves, and if we didn't go join them, they were about to lock the doors also. So the funding is big. I don't know where we can come with that, but for the mental health issues, yes. The housing, but definitely the housing, is huge. And the biggest thing before I'll close is where you're talking about how do we reach out to these veterans, in New York. And I think maybe we should have like a registrar of when you ETS, I was going to say ETS, which only military knows what that is when you get out of the service, there should be a place that you could reach out and get the name, get the ID, get the address of that individual, and welcome them home. Welcome them home and build a relationship from there. I myself, I deal with St. Albans Hospital, and I've been down in Brooklyn by Fort Hamilton, and I find their medical and their professionals and the nurses, the doctors, I find them excellent. I have no problem whatsoever. I don't wait long times. I make an appointment. I walk right in. It's fantastic. And a lot of veterans, a lot of guys. I had one guy, another Vietnam veteran era. He asked me, Len, how do you get along with the Brooklyn, hospital? I said, great. I said, I have no problem whatsoever. So it's unbeknownst to a lot of people how far we came along. And I said, only since I've been active since the last 5 years. And that's probably thanking Commissioner Hendon and Councilman Holden and all the other veterans representatives. But I'm just saying, I think we need a forum. Instead of this Zoom meetings, have a get together, invite the other chapters, invite the American Legion and the young, the Iraqi Afghanistans, because we're all hurting. I suffer from survivor's guilt, and it only came to pass since I started getting active again. My life went on after Vietnam. My life went on. I got busy, and then only recently talking to Councilman Holden and the other Vietnam veterans, and amongst ourselves, I can open up. Amongst strangers, I will not. I really, really won't. And that's just basic life. And that's it for me. I allow you to give me that extra time of talking, but we do have to have more funding, and there has to be more to do for Board Avenue, to St. Albans, and all the other VSA organizations, as you say, veteran services. So thank you for, I don't want to ramble anymore, but I had it all written down, and I know I missed some stuff, but thank you very much. We definitely need more funding.
No, I think you
And
got
more
everything. You got
outreach
everything,
for
Len.
veterans.
Very good. Thank you. You got everything. But again, thank you for your leadership on Vietnam Vets Chapter 32, and all your help on the coat drive at Borden. You were amazing on that. You helped transport all those hundreds of coats that we brought over, and certainly supplied some of the coats and many other projects that you do all over the city. So we thank you, Lynn Williams.
Thank you. Our next witness is Laurie Sutton.
You may begin.
Thank you so much. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, yes.
Hey, terrific. Chair Holden, other members of the Committee on Veterans, Commissioner Hendon, and all of us who are gathered today to address these important issues. First of all, Chair Holden, I just want to echo and share your sentiments concerning the loss of Deputy Commissioner and former City Council member Paul Vallone. Yes, his optimism, his inspiration, his example will continue to be felt for years to come. This morning, this afternoon, I just have a couple of things I'd like to address, one on veteran homelessness and one on PTSD. First, on veteran homelessness, I was recently appointed to serve as vice chair of the Veterans Community and Outreach Engagement Board in West LA to address their challenges with veteran homelessness, community services, and linking it into the broader community. They were aware of our track record here in New York City, and I was able to point them to the recent report. The New York State Comptroller last November published a report on homelessness among New York's veterans, and specifically called out the city for their outsized impact that had to do with a lot of the folks that are in that room right now and across the city. And I just wanted to make the point, Chair Holden, that achieving those impacts required resources, absolutely, and also peer support, partnerships, so vital, the programs, yes, that the commissioner outlined, and the presence, whether it be face-to-face, wherever possible, or in person. And as we go forward, New York City will continue to stand out as a leader among leaders. Just listening to Commissioner Hendon, I'm so proud to hear of all that's going on, and will continue to evolve and develop as the Department of Veteran Services lives up to the vision held by so many generations of veterans, family members, elected officials, and advocates. Secondly, PTSD. Thank you so much, Thank you so much, Chair Holden, for your leadership and advocacy in bringing together a joint committee hearing last September with Chair Lee and the Committee on Mental Health, Disabilities, and Addictions. I'd just like to, I won't repeat, I testified at length last September, but I just want to add one point of clarification now regarding something that came up earlier this session, and that has to do with lifetime prevalence of PTSD. Yes, the lifetime prevalence on average for veterans ranges between 7 and 8%. But of course, the veterans that we encounter and that we deal with, and that DVS is doing such a masterful job in reaching out to and supporting through their various programs and partnerships, they're individual veterans, and they belong to subgroups of the veteran population which hold distinctly different rates of lifetime prevalence. So, for example, in a 2022 study that was recently published in the Journal of Clinical Psychiatry, this really aimed at the national health and resilience in veterans study. It found that the range of lifetime prevalence ranged from 7% to 32%. And, for women veterans, 19%, Vietnam veterans, 23%, post 9/11 veterans, 15 to 20%, 21 to 29-year-old veterans, 24%, and among our LGBTQ plus colleagues, over 30%. So I hope those numbers help to sort of humanize and to express the variation among our entire population of veterans, our community of veterans, and to understand that within certain subgroups, subcommunities, the young women, post 9/11, LGBTQ plus, there's considerable variation, and we've got to reach out and connect. And thank you again, Chair Holden, for your support for RTM as one of the breakthrough treatments that really can continue to make a difference. With that, I'd be happy to address any comments or questions. Thank you, Chair Holden.
Well, thank you, General Sutton. And by the way, thank you for actually exposing, at least on a hearing, but also on a Zoom, the RTM, that you actually told me about it and how successful it is. So that's why we're going to do some pilot programs, thanks to you and thanks to all your wonderful work with our veterans over the years, from being the commissioner of DVS to doing all the things you're doing now across the country. So again, I want to thank you for your leadership and on behalf of our veterans.
Takes a team.
Anybody else?
Yeah.
Thank you, General. Thank you, General.
Thank you. And I believe we now have Edward Schloman.
You may begin.
I'm here.
Yeah, okay, great.
Okay, you guys, you have to unmute me, I think.
You are.
Oh,
We got
I
you.
have
Go
no
ahead.
Video. Okay, no video, that's okay. I'm retired Chief Master Sergeant Ed Schloman, Chairman of Operation Warrior Shield, and I thank you once again for the opportunity to discuss our work with mental health and the veteran community. I have been involved with this work since 2010, and I am very proud of the partnerships which we have with many city organizations. We have endorsed and implemented Transcendental Meditation, or TM, with the partnership with the David Lynch Foundation, Operation Canine Companion with the partnership from the Doris Day Animal Foundation, and today, as I presented in our last council meeting 6 months ago, I am proud to say we are supporting another mental health initiative called, as you all know, RTM. Both General Sutton and I are working together on this initiative, and I sent the package to the City Council and to you too, Council Member and Chair Holden, outlining a program which we called Project Gotham Grit. Operation Warrior Shield has submitted a grant request to implement this program, and we have already have much interest from NYPD Health and Wellness Section and other veteran service organizations. Why NYPD? They have over 3,000 active duty reservists in the military today, and many have seen combat, and I am very honored to present RTM to the Police Academy on April 10th. And joining me, of course, is General Sutton, and I hope that you could come too. With the city grant I presented in the New York City discretionary funding, we need the support in this battle against PTSD. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Ed. And again, thank you for your wonderful work in RTM, and also your work with our veterans. You're well known throughout, and I'm glad we were able to unmute you finally. But we still have a nice picture of you on our screen here. At least we can look at that. So thanks again for your work.
Thank you, Beck.
I would like to call one last time anyone who may be on Zoom who had registered, including Vishal Balani, DeQuincy Bowen, Rabah Belkabir, and Crystal Brockington. Anyone there?
Okay, last call. That's it. Thank you, everyone, for your testimony. And Commissioner Hendon is still here, as usual. We thank him for that. One of the only commissioners to stay throughout all the hearings. And thank you to my colleagues who also stayed, the Common Sense Caucus. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. I think it was a great hearing, and we'll see you at the next hearing next week. Thank you.